We are back. Hey, hopefully that audio video stuff will resolve itself on the other discussion. It's processing right now. I know that a little ways through it, I kind of fixed it. I'm still working on the itself on the other discussion. Yeah, processing right man. I know that. So I fixed that now. But I'm still working on some of the settings, so I'll get it down eventually. You think after all this time, I'd really kind of nail it. But yeah, this computer doesn't seem to like streaming. Oh, well, it's still a great computer for other things. Games are great on it. I mean, it really is. I've been playing Witcher 3. Great game. The attention to detail on it is fantastic. But anyways, back to the topic at hand. This is about Lucas and Ocean's Street of Epistemology Hangout, which I thought went exceptionally well. Two very intelligent interlocutors having a very polite conversation. That's the way I think street epistemology should go. And I think that's how conversation should go. So when you have somebody like Ocean who's very able and very capable to explaining his beliefs, it goes a lot different than the average person you find on the street who doesn't really know how or why they believe a certain thing, right? They not always are able to justify their beliefs. And I understand that. Not everybody looks into this epistemology. The point is saying, do I have a reasonable justification for holding a particular belief? The average person probably, you know what they should ask? I mean, I'm more curious that we should start a new type of street epistemology where people go ask them on the street questions, like do you know what it is to justify a belief? And I think that most people would say no. But again, they're trying to avoid the technical kind of stuff, as Lucas kind of annotated that noted. He said, that they're not epistemologists, right? So they might look at something differently than somebody looking in and going, okay, well, maybe this person might be more justified than what the street epistemologist is giving credit for. But what you would say, you guys, I'm probably going to turn this over to you guys, let people in as they message you. The link will be giving out individually if you message somebody like Ocean, and then we validate your account. But I got to go do some other things here. But you guys want to kind of take it over and go from there?
Yeah, I'm in charge. Got it.
You know what? I'm going to do that. Oh, DM, you are in charge.
Yes!
I'm literally putting you in charge. So go ahead.
This is a terrible idea.
What could possibly go wrong?
I'll tell you a quick story from when I was in the military once upon a time. And they were like, "You're in charge," and they told me I was in charge. And I said, "Okay, we're what was it? What did we call it?" Yeah, I was like, "Okay, oh, right, we're secured." That's the term for we're done. So I'm like, "We're secured." Everyone started leaving. There was no hesitation between "you're in charge" and me saying "we're done for the day," basically. Anyways, okay. All right, so Tyler asked a bunch of questions. I think you answered a couple of them in the chat there, Ocean. But
right, what did you guys think of the conversation? There's
that was
a couple of people in here now.
Yeah, I thought the conversation went great. I kind of like it, like a relaxed platform where people are actually genuinely interested, and it's not just about winning arguments all the time.
Yeah, it was a good argument to follow. That there may have been something new for people to hear in it.
I respect the fact that even though, it just seems more, I hate to use the word mature and just sound like a douchebag here, but I like it, man, when people can agree to disagree and be okay with it without throwing temper tantrums.
Yeah, I mean, I understand people like the drama. I get that, but I much prefer these kinds of conversations over the drama. There are sometimes I like the drama if I've been, had a few beers, or, it's one of those just trollish nights where you're like, okay, let's go mess with some flat earthers or whatever. But these kinds of conversations I find to be much more interesting.
I mean, I think, we all like the G-Man videos, and, when Ocean talked to Matt Slick, we love the Malpass videos with Slick and all those. Yeah, they're entertaining, but I mean, just speaking from my end, I'm genuinely here to learn, and kind of glean from everyone, and try to strengthen my own position in what I think and believe.
Well, and I totally agree with you on that, and I think we're at the point now, and I don't remember who was mentioning this before, so forgive me, but somebody was basically saying, look, you know, slapping down these people is not that terribly difficult anymore. People know how to destroy G-Man's arguments. I mean, from what I understood, Emperor Atheist just annihilated him. People know how to destroy Ronnie's arguments. I mean, I've debated him, destroyed him. Nation of P has debated him, destroyed him. These people are not that difficult to refute, right? So at that point, it's not as entertaining nowadays as it was before, because it's kind of par for the course. I mean, have you ever seen any of these guys destroy anybody? No, clearly not.
Themselves.
Okay, well, yeah, they're self-refuting, but I mean, unless somebody's really, really inept, they don't really do a good job, and I don't think anybody here is inept, clearly. So, well, I think, yeah, it's entertaining, but do you guys really want to see another takedown of G-Man? Will it really change anything? We've seen so many of them; it has no effect. But by the way, G-Man can join. I told him he could hang out, but I don't think he will. But, no, I told him he could, but he probably won't, so I don't care. But Emperor Atheist, I was trying to get to join.
Thanks for offering.
I wish we would ignore him until he went away like Shaka God did. Like, he just disappeared.
I don't have a problem with that either. But the issue is that I think he's in it for the long haul. No matter how many times he looks like an idiot, he's still going to be in it. So
I have some thoughts on street epistemology as far as like kind of what we just experienced, as far as a comparison to what we're used to. As far as I was watching some of Lucas's videos, and he says one of the reasons why he likes street epistemology is that he gets sick of the atheist takedowns that we see, where it's just like there's a meanness with kind of the atheism culture on YouTube. I think atheism culture generally, or atheist culture generally, there is a kind of like abrasiveness to it, which I don't necessarily mind it, but occasionally it gets annoying. I think that what I like about street epistemology is that there's a lot more focus about how atheism is being communicated, or how skepticism is being communicated, and it takes it away from being a competition and more about whoever is trying to instill doubt or whatever it is that you want to say is the goal of SE. It's more about the person that is engaging in that. They're learning. And that's something that's really positive about it that I like. One of the things that I think is weird about it is that when I see a bunch of people that practice SE in a hangout together, the way that they communicate with each other comes off to me as super fucking culty.
It's a little robotic or something, or just let me ask you about your faith.
No, it's like you get like 5 of them in a room, right? And this happened this morning with the show where Lucas and I started talking in the chat. That they would show a video and then they would talk about kind of what happened and do postmortems, which fine, that's useful. That's a great practice. But then you would see them communicate with one another about like what the best way is to approach a conversation, and they'd start throwing buzzwords around. And that's the buzzwords within that community it reminded me a lot of I can't remember there's kind of a culty experience that I had. It was a Christian church called The Rock. And The Rock it's one of those like churches with no windows, and it's got a nice little band and everything, and it's very insular. There's like 200 people in it. And when I would listen to them communicate with one another, there would be a kind of like almost a language between them that just turned me off. And that's one of the things about street epistemology that I think that it needs to figure out before it becomes something that's mainstream. I know they're trying to become mainstream, and I think that there's a lot of good things about it becoming mainstream because it would improve how atheists communicate. On the other hand, it is kind of like Jehovah's Witnessy when it comes to like how they communicate with one another.
Yeah, no, I understand the speak. It's like anything else. There's words that they use very specifically in the books that they read in order to understand street epistemology.
And a lot of them, like the leaders in it. The leaders in it have cult leader personality types when I listen to them speak. like even Anthony does. It's funny looking at Anthony because he is kind of like he has that ethos about him. And Tyler's bringing up in the side chat that he's talking about hallmarks of a cult, cutting members off from outside influences and so on. And that's something that SE is definitely not doing. I'm not saying that about them. I just say that they come off as a little weird. That's all that it is.
Yeah, well, Dr. Peter,
I think it's overall a good thing. It's just that's something that's like kind of, huh.
the guy that started it, Dr. Peter how do you pronounce his name? Boghosian?
Yeah, like he's like
he comes across as an alpha male cult leader, but Anthony doesn't. Anthony's more the cult follower.
No, Anthony's
but
more.
It's not
No.
Anthony, thank you, by the way. Wait, quick, I have to say this.
It's two different kinds of cult leaders.
Hang on.
Yeah. Okay.
I want to thank Benjamin in the live chat because he donated to PayPal, and I wanted to appreciate that because I point that things out when people do nice stuff like that because I notice.
Yay.
So thank you, Benjamin. I'm trying to get G-Man in here. He wants the link, but I don't use Skype. Skype will kill my system. It just invades. It's like a weed. It just goes everywhere. It's just an IV.
Did he watch the interview?
I have no idea.
If he didn't watch the interview and then he's going to come into the after show and turn it to exactly what we're all complaining about, I think it's a terrible fucking idea.
It's always a terrible idea to buy G-Man.
I'm just going to say that. But anyway, Bogosian, I don't know how to pronounce his name, but I watched a speech that he did, and his, he comes off as he wants people to have like nice conversations and all that shit. But then watching him speak, I was like, oh wait, there's the sinister thing behind this. He has a lot of like very, I guess, bold approaches where he refers to the faith as a virus and
right. Religion is a virus to him.
Right,
but see, Anthony doesn't, and he wants to take street epistemology away from that. He wants to get rid of the rhetoric and make it into a Socratic methodology, and that's what I respect.
Okay, and that's fine if they're not related, because I've seen. I went to the Street Epistemology website, and there is Bogosian's speeches on his website. So that's the disconnect for me, because his book is still like revered and everything, because he maps it out. Like he's created the thing, I guess. So.
Can somebody get G-Man the link? It's nothing comes up for me when I'm trying to invite him because he's asked, and I've mentioned him, and we have a rule, and I'm not gonna. If he wants to come in, he's more than welcome to.
You know what they're speaking about?
It won't be around much longer, so he's gonna be here. So wait. Here's the thing: he's gonna come in, but DM man is gonna be in charge.
Yeah.
So he's gonna have to like
just it's moderate him if you would, but
I don't know why I can't find anything for G-Man.
Yeah, it's like, hi, G-Man, how's it going? Bye, boom. Okay,
that's not what I'm talking about. It's just, you know what I'm talking about.
You have to have the internal link. Why can't I don't
you want me to just post it in the chat, in the outside chat?
Yeah, that's what I have to do, and then we'll just control snipers.
I can do that.
I'll do it. Okay, so G-Man, I gave you the link right now. Come on in. I have cameraman on. I've got all kinds of sniping proof stuff. So
okay, cool.
This will be my first live G-Man encounter.
Oh God! I see. That's the thing, is that if G-Man comes in, it'll become about him.
All right. So,
hey, so not to like
these questions that Tyler asked, or
there's a couple of questions that Tyler asked a lot of interesting questions, and I like what
I put everything he asked in the side there so that I wasn't misquoting him or whatever.
Yeah, the thing that I thought was really interesting was I thought I explained.
And Nick, I'm trying to remember who you are.
A bit about. He's good. I remember him.
Yeah, I think so.
I remember that it was explaining about supernatural and natural and just how cumbersome defining those terms are. And he talked about how lightning started out supernatural and then became natural. And I think that's a reasonable kind of it follows from what I said that. Before we understood lightning, it would have been seen as supernatural. Now, there's all kinds of explanations that would be applied to it. Since learning more about it and how it works and everything, it has become understood, therefore natural. That doesn't change anything about what lightning is. It just changes our perspective of it. Natural and supernatural, as I defined it in the
what it does is it removes
has to do with perspective more than anything else.
Yeah, it takes it from the supernatural set and it moves it to the natural set.
Well, You had said something to the effect, Ocean, of that you know it when you see it, like you know the supernatural when you see it.
Right, and that's when you're using it in a colloquial sense. So it's like when you know it when you see it. But people say supernatural without defining it. People know you're talking about gods, ghosts, spirits, and that kind of shit. But as far as like trying to provide a definition to it in which you can be rigid with it and actually try and use it in a conversation where you're working around it, that becomes much more challenging because you're discussing many different things with several different properties, which the only commonality is we don't understand how they work. But when you understand how something works and you have what's the word for this? You know, your scientific method starts with an E. It's not epistemic, empiric. Yeah, if you have once you have an empirical set around it or empirical construct around it, it kind of becomes natural, like it's part of the natural world at that point.
Yeah, I mean, look at Harry Potter. That would be considered to be natural to them.
And again, that comes out. The reason why I was discussing it in that context is that's kind of the conclusion of the conversation that me and King Crocoduck came to when we were discussing what natural and supernatural is. Where I went into a thing where it's using his definition of natural. I defined the gods as natural but immaterial, and that threw a wrench into the conversation, and we had to kind of relook at things because once you put forward the definitions, all of a sudden, God's the subject of the conversation, then fits into this realm. You know, it's a problem because he was trying to define supernatural as that which without an ontology or without possible to have an ontology or requiring a separate ontology. And I don't think that's the case.
Well, you had said about like looking at the past and assuming that supernatural could have happened, and I would think that would mean you could still think that
you're open to gods and spirits and shit.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So and that's still, I would assume, going on today that if something weird happened, it might be God, it might not be, who knows, but it could be a god. For all you know, like, you know, just see something really weird, like, you know, you see a laptop levitating in the air, you know, that's like, okay, well, that's probably God doing that, you know, or would you?
But you could have a naturalistic explanation once you understand the laptop levitating or phenomena.
So at that,
you know, it's a magnetism or some shit that popped up in that spot.
So the gods
wound up in the illusion of something that appears supernatural until you understand it. Right. That's one example of how that would happen.
Would the gods just be part of the natural order, but yet so the word supernatural is just a placeholder for not yet understood? Then
that's how. That's one of the ways of using the word.
Is that the way you use the word?
I've used it multiple ways. I don't think that there's not a hard.
Yeah,
right,
that's what I was saying.
There's multiple definitions for it.
People can use it for their discussion. I kind of use it my own way as a saying, like I said, you know, if I think of something can change the laws of the universe or prescribe the laws of the universe, I'm going to call that a god. And I also think that supernatural is more of a set thing. It is obviously things we don't understand, but it's something where if we do understand it and it's natural, we just move to the natural. If not, it stays in the set of supernatural. If you claim supernatural can occur, right? I mean, but again, a lot of people don't have that position. In science, you're going to have methodological naturalism anyway, so that set of supernatural doesn't even exist. There's no requirement for supernatural to exist in that way, right? The methodological approach would be there is no supernatural. That's fine with that framework, but we're talking about philosophy, not science. So
when somebody looks into the past, reads history books or mythology books, if we're granting that gods occur and so weird things can happen, is there no way to differentiate between that this really happened in the past versus this is just what people believed to happen?
I think that's one of the challenges with history, regardless of whether or not you're open to the idea of supernatural. Like if you're open to it, that's a challenge. If you're not open to it, that's a challenge. Like it's a problem you're going to face.
You can say, well, that's just what they believed. If you didn't
Okay, so for example, you have with the study of history, you have there's a famous battle between the Hittites and the Egyptians. I forget the fucking name of it, but both civilizations have historical records of them winning that battle.
Right.
And the effects of winning the battle are reflected in their records, and they conflict. So, what happened? Now, that's one of the things that
right. Okay,
you have this group that believes one thing, you have this other group that believes another thing. There's no supernatural element to this. This is simply you have conflicting sources.
Right, but I mean,
you have no idea what happened. So
another layer of complexity added on when you assume.
Yeah, when you put in gods into it, right? It makes everything a mess. But I think that reality is a complicated thing.
I like to make it neat.
Right. It certainly, from the perspective of the historian, eliminating the supernatural makes things easier. And because, again, as a historian, you need to look at history and say that I can explain this with what I know how it works, rather than explaining this with something that I don't know how it works. Because otherwise you can just say, well, time travelers, and then all kinds of things become a mess. Once you start accepting things like that.
Well, a wizard did it,
Right, exactly.
King Cream and whatever. I mean,
or you'd start talking about, like, Merlin is an example. What is there to make of a character like that? That's a kind of a legendary figure. Is there a historical King Arthur with a historical Merlin of some kind? What would that figure have been like? Did that figure do anything like what's described in the Merlin legends? I don't know.
I would say any of the things that were attributed to magic would be off the table, and that anything done would be exaggerated. So maybe
and that is the school of thought. That's the school of thought within history, is to say, there's claims about magic here, but we're going to explain them with what we can understand. And that's a reasonable position to hold as a historian. It's one that I don't argue with, really.
You didn't cover the. I don't know if you wanted to cover it. Is there anything that Ocean's justification cannot be used for, aside from contradictory entities? Was another question that Tyler had asked.
Yeah.
I don't know what that was in reference to,
as far as he's talking about the explanation of gods. I think that the method that I use has to do with, you have personal experience, you have historical justification, and then you have experience beyond. Like, there's the only experimentation you can do is to be like, okay, so I'm provisionally accepting this works, and I think that's how my religion functions. It's a provisional position.
You have to have historical justification for the.
For me, I know there's some people that throw that one out, but I think that if there's something, if there are gods, and we're going to assume that they communicate with humans, then we would figure that this has happened before, rather than something that's just now starting. That's something that can't be justified as well. That's one of the reasons why you get religions like some of these new cults that pop up that are centered around some kind of god. Mystery traditions in the Roman Empire, for example.
With your methodology or within your belief to say that God is definitely not real. That's just phony baloney.
Right. I mentioned that with Lucus when it's a contradictory entity, which is the problem that Tyler has. So Tyler's issue has to do with can it be used to justify anything that isn't a self-contradictory entity? Probably, as long as it has the other attributes that I'm discussing.
Well, there was this person at a local fair that was selling these candles that they said, helps healing, helps all these things. Of course, it's like you can just say helps with, and you get away with it because you're not saying actually fixes these things. With something like that, it's obvious to me it's a scam. So you know, but if they're claiming this is, you know, magical or from a god or whatever, then what's self-contradictory about that particular phenomenon, or would it just depend on what we're talking about?
Wait, Tyler is bringing up in the side chat that he's saying that it works for Bigfoot and Ancient Aliens, time travelers.
I prayed to Bigfoot and it did work. So,
you didn't pray in the right way.
Like, I agree with Tyler's objection. Like, that's reasonable to me, but it doesn't change my position much, because that's just one of the unfortunate aspects of reality, is that there are justification limitations.
So you recognize there's a problem with your system, but it's just like, well, yep, that's a thing.
Well,
I think there's problems in any system.
Yeah.
It's just like, all right, well, this is one of the problems with mine.
Yeah, okay.
I can acknowledge that. That's fine. I just don't. I have less of a my. It goes down for me when we go into like Ancient Aliens, time travelers, and Bigfoot and so on. Because there's not a historical justification for a lot of those things. With Ancient Aliens, it takes credit away from humanity in a way that I find frustrating as somebody who's read a lot of history. So I get annoyed, like with that. It's something that I don't accept. I reject it purely because I have faith in humanity more than I have faith in Ancient Aliens.
Wouldn't it be higher exalt of humanity to say that all of these things about gods that we've come up with, even though they're pretend or whatever, doesn't really matter if they've helped us to advance, and so therefore, you know, let's just say, hey, okay, we made them up, so what? We're still going forward.
Well, I mean,
you say people are just fully admitting that they made it up, and they're just like, cool, let's go with it.
but you got to, DM, you got to acknowledge though, because
that's we're not talking about my religion at that point. We're talking about something else. But
like that saying, okay, we've come to this point in civilization, hypothetically, where we go, look, we probably made all this stuff up, but that's okay because we can still learn something from it. We can still do something with it, but we'll just move on and admit that it's in our head and accept that.
If there's a group of people that want to do that, I don't necessarily have a huge problem with it because they're honest about it.
All right.
Like, if they want to do that, it depends on what they're doing, right? So
yeah, I get it.
Do you agree, though? Twofold question. One, obviously, religion has contributed to scientific advancements because science was funded by universities, which were funded by the churches. Alchemy, led into chemistry. Astrology led into astronomy. There's historically some reasons why we make the argument because of religion we have the science we have today. Now, you make a good argument. As we learn more about science, does religion start going away? Do we still have a need for these gods? The only way to really answer that question is over time. We'll see what happens. If we have a society 500 years from now where there are no theists, there's no religion, that would just be a natural course of progression if that's the case, right? But as of right now, there are people that do believe in this stuff. Now, I, again, don't care so much what they believe as much as I do how their beliefs affect me and their beliefs affect other people. That to me is a huge, huge issue, right? If you want to believe that the moon is made of green cheese, okay, I think you're out to lunch on it. But I mean, you're welcome to have that belief. I don't think you can justify it at all. It's a rational belief. How you came to it, I'm sure, is irrational, but it doesn't affect me in any way, right? So I'm more concerned about these beliefs that affect me and my daughter more than anything else. Does that kind of make sense? And so that to me is, if street epistemology can help change that, then that's why I'm all for it. Right.
Yeah.
Because I'm not an anti-theist. I think anti-theism makes sense to
me. he didn't join, thankfully.
I sent him the link via J+, but he
said you had to call him because he's on his phone. He doesn't know how to.
I'm not willing to do that much effort to get.
Yeah, I'm not either. It's just not.
Especially if he didn't even watch the damn interview. Like,
yeah, I don't have his number. I don't use Skype when I'm on Linux. So,
General, did you see the interview?
Nah.
General, you there?
He said nah.
Oh, okay.
Well, you're out of here then. No.
Little fucking bastard, get the fuck out.
Yeah, let's do
Bye.
SE on
I think that General, you should watch it. I think that you would get a kick out of it.
Yeah, go watch it and then come back. Like, all right, guys, I'll be back in an hour. Or so.
Anything for my beautiful ocean.
That's right. I don't know. I think my beard's better, but
General
yeah.
Han Solo gets a little homosexual around me. It's great.
That's the next poll that you need to put up, Steve. Is whose beard is the best? But there's not enough choices to go around. You're limited to like 6 choices.
I think that there should be a competition between my beard and Steve's beard.
No, my beard. Steve,
I don't see your beard very often.
Well, you know, it's because you don't watch my videos.
That's true.
It's like, oh yeah, you're right. I don't care about you.
I don't give a wooden shit about you. That's true.
Stupid channel. I don't care. Whatever. Who cares?
I haven't seen it. I just thought about this. I haven't seen any of the Converted Man videos. I probably should go check out his channel.
Yeah.
So with that kind of review.
Yeah, it's like, yeah, some of them are good, some of them aren't, you know. The ones I think are good, you know. That's how it works. A Bigfoot type creature exists. No. The National Center for Science Education was talking about Bigfoot and how impossible it would be to have this sort of creature be in the environment that it's seen in. You know,
well, you're talking about Giganticus, right?
Well, whatever they were talking about,
they Australopithecus giganticus, but that wouldn't that doesn't make a Bigfoot though,
like
right?
a Bigfoot, you know, the way it's normally described.
Yeah, it's not.
You wouldn't find it in the woods. They said here's where you would find this sort of thing.
Right, but here's the way I'm looking at it. The way I would not be agnostic on the claim to Bigfoot. I say I believe Bigfoot doesn't exist. But the reason being is I know the story behind the father and son that started the whole thing, right? With their cast plaster Paris cast and impressions and all that stuff. I just believe that is completely a hoax, right? That's what I believe.
Right. Yeah. There's definitely a hoax. I mean, you know, there's definitely a legend built around it. But if it was a real creature, you wouldn't see it in the woods. So that was like, okay, here's the reason why, science stuff. And I was like, oh, okay, cool. Yeah, that's great.
But we're not. See, but here's the thing. If somebody says, okay, it's Australopithecus giganticus, then they're just positing another name for that. But nobody's positing that those things exist. They're positing that a creature named Bigfoot exists. That's, cryptozoology. That's somehow not something we can't explain.
The only Bigfoot I care about is the one that crushes cars. So,
yeah.
That wasn't a very good joke.
Are there any other questions on the table, or?
I have.
Has your beard discovered the female G-spot? That comes
Obviously.
Obviously. Taking that from chat. I didn't come up with it. Okay, I pretended that it was a question, and then I made it into a question. Tyler said,
I have successfully turned a hangout about paganism into a discussion on the existence of Bigfoot.
Yeah, I would say that it has disproved big. If we know the origin story of the Bigfoot hoax, then I would say that disproves.
Look, we're not talking about
just
Bigfoot.
lost on Steve. I don't.
We're no longer.
He's like, yeah, I want to talk about Bigfoot.
Nope, we're not. Stop the limits.
Atheism is not. Oh, sorry.
You can't prove Bigfoot doesn't exist. Wait, what?
Let's spend 2 hours more on the definition of atheism. Come on, guys.
No.
Damn it.
No, let's see. Let's talk about the definition of paganism. Even better.
Is that because
that's hard to peg down? It's hard to peg down paganism.
It's a mess, Steve.
Pig. Let's talk about. I wanted to ask about the experience thing and the order of it, because some people have, the religion comes first, and then the experience, and then they learn the history, or it can go in any order. So what?
I was experience first, then the religion.
So you had an experience, and then you looked at different religions to find what best matched that, or
largely, yeah.
Okay.
So that was I didn't plan on becoming heathen.
Because I'd read about this one person that had an experience of whatever Egyptian cat it was. Like they had a vision of a cat god, and so they kind of became this Egyptian cat god worshiper. And it's like it's hard to know if it's like they happened to think about a cat and they thought it was a god, and then it's like, well, that's the first one that popped up that matched that. So it's kind of like, because every single type
there's
of
animism as well, but most of the Egyptians are kind of a weird mix between animism and polytheism, and that the gods are kind of anthropomorphic animals. There's like Ra is kind of a scarab, and Best is a cat. There's a friend of mine that built his cat a litter box. Like this really big shed kind of thing made out of wood, and it combats the smell of a litter box really well. And he calls it the bathroom.
Oh,
I think it's great.
Oh.
Yeah, I'll have to get my roommate back on again because he was really good and people like listening to him. He believes that government and other things have portals, and that we have entities that travel between these portals, which are demons and angels. And he bases a lot of things on what's called the aviary. If you guys know about ufology, there's a list of what's called the presidential aviary people. And these were people that were supposedly to give out disinformation. One of the things about this specific project. And he knows most of the people on this aviary. He's actually does work in Hollywood. He's been a casting agent and a director, and he's worked with some people. And he's starting a new thing on History Channel on this very thing. Or one of the channels, I don't know what the hell it could be Netflix, but I should have him back on, and then run a straight epistemology thing on him on this particular belief. Because again, I don't necessarily agree with him, but he says he's seen these portals, and this is his belief, and I think it'd be a very interesting thing to kind of dive into, because I don't know anything about this particular subject of portals, of demons coming from portals, right? And angels, and the aviary I know a little about.
That was what I was going to bring up, was the expectation of the God in question, what sort of thing we would expect to see. So I feel that that's putting the cart in front of the horse. It's but because what you're saying is essentially is like, I expect to see no evidence from this God because it said that there wouldn't be evidence of it in this book here. So there's no evidence of this God. See, I was right. Isn't there a better methodology to establishing whether or not that this is real? And I guess you had said, Ocean, that to you, if I remember correctly, that there's an equalness of, or that you can't quantify between, it could be natural versus it could be gods. That yes, right. And so why? I guess what I'm asking is, why are those on equal level for you? Is there a way to put more weight on one than the other, or is it because of the unfalsifiability of these gods that makes it equal to you? Or
I don't know how you would be able to quantify probability regarding gods versus not gods. So
well, what? Okay, so they're not falsifiable, or is that correct to say that there's no test I can run? There's nothing I can.
I don't think that any of the positions in question are falsifiable. Like, so saying an atheistic worldview, still not falsifiable. A polytheistic or monotheistic worldview has the same falsifiability problem. So when I'm looking at the positions that are being looked at, I'm going to go with looking at the one that most reflects the experience that I'm having, which would be polytheism. So, Q, your mic is doing something, dude.
Yeah, stop.
I'm gonna mute you.
Sorry. Accidentally.
But right. I don't know.
Well, you're having an experience of something, so wouldn't that, if it's coming from outside of you, wouldn't there be some signal
let's
to detect?
turn the table around for a second. If you're holding a position of no gods, how do you solve that problem? What are you using to quantify that situation?
Well, I'm not holding. I don't know what position I hold. I'm a skeptic, so I doubt whatever you got. What do you?
Right.
What do you
I mean, I'm a skeptic as well, so I don't know.
I doubt all the things. I mean, that's what it means for me to be a skeptic is to doubt, and to doubt, supernatural gods, whatever. What is it? What, how can I, if it's something that is so broad like this?
Let's look at it this way. Like, so you're a skeptic, but you're living your life as one of the propositions, right? Like, you're living your life as if there's no gods.
There's a priori assumptions that have to be made.
Right. So for me, I am a skeptic as well, but I'm living under this impression that reflects my experiences. And that's how I'm moving forward on that.
Yeah.
But I do identify as a skeptic because it's, to me, if there's conflicting data that comes out, I'm open to it. And as the prior conversation referenced, if I become an atheist tomorrow, there's things that change, I guess, but I don't know if the religious practice is given up.
Yeah. Well,
would you say that your experiences are spiritual?
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
that's.
And this is just curiosity. I'm not like trying to be a dick here or anything. And I completely respect that you don't want to delve into your experiences.
Not trying to be a dick, but what the fuck are you doing, buddy? No, I'm just kidding.
no. I don't have to try. It's just natural. So I was just like, no, but like, and I'm not saying that it's like a methodological, thing you go through when you have an experience, but like, what criteria would an experience have to meet to move from being just a natural experience, like one would, like when one's describing like a mother's intuition or deja vu or something like that, to a spiritual experience?
I think that there's the mother's intuition kind of thing has a sort of it definitely has an unempirical aspect to it, right? You know what I mean? Like, how do you empirically justify mother's intuition? You can't, right, but you still act on it. I think that has actually a lot of the same properties, but it's one that it's a non-empirical position that we're okay with, rather than one of the gods that we're not that atheists generally are not okay with. Like, a lot of like atheists, if their wife is going to say, "Hey, I have a mother's intuition on this, maybe our kid shouldn't be over there," it's not going to be much of a fuss. It's just they're not going to. Well, what can you justify that position, lady? It's just not going to be happening.
Yeah, but I mean, like, I guess where I'm coming from is more like, and obviously by nature, when we're dealing with a theological position or anything like that, asking for empirical justification is kind of stupid, in my opinion. But
I think it's a category error. It's Seamus tends to trot out.
But what would make you go from like, okay, this is just as, I guess what I'm trying to say is, when you have the experience, after the experience is had, how would you just intrinsically know that, okay, this was a spiritual experience, rather than, okay,
I think no is, I don't like, I tend to avoid words in these conversations like no and prove, because they come with certain baggage.
You're right. You're right.
Like, as a skeptic, I'm not willing to put those on the table, right? But I will say that when you have an experience and you look at what the explanations for the experience are and what justifications there are behind those explanations.
I guess in a conversation like this, that's not really good vocab, because we're obviously no and prove and things like that are rough. But when you're assessing the experience personally, you would, to a certain extent, say, I know that this was spiritual in the sense that I'm willing to make this my position, rather than saying, okay, this is probably something, some experience that I've not had before, some anomaly or whatever going on. But to yourself, it would almost, I mean, and this is the way I would look at it, and I could be completely wrong about this. I would have to say, to a certain extent, I know this is spiritual, so much so that I'm willing to make this my position and defend that position to some extent. So, like, I guess that's what I'm wondering is what would make you shift any position, just to be able to claim that position, like from just saying, I don't know what the hell that was, to, wow, that was supernatural and spiritual, in the sense that I'm going to match it to a theological position and claim that position.
I think that if it matches a theological position, there's reason to investigate that.
Okay. Yeah.
But if it doesn't match, then what are you doing, right? So, if there's something that doesn't match, that you are experiencing, that doesn't match the tradition that you're in, then that's worth investigation as well.
Right. Because that's the only thing we can seriously, like, I mean, I don't mean to say seriously, that's kind of, I don't mean to be insulting when I say that, but that's the only thing that I can look at. Because I can't, a claim is a claim, and, I can't, the only thing that I can look at and kind of inquire about is the experience itself, and why one would say that it's supernatural rather than natural. I can't, I'm not looking to argue about Norse, the Norse gods or anything like that. I mean, to be honest with you, I mean, if we got into an argument about that, I would see my ass getting kicked really quick. But the experience
simply because of your ignorance on the topic, I guess, right? Like the thing in a lot of these conversations is that atheists are generally more familiar with Christianity than they are about any fucking thing else. So I think that if there was more familiarity with the stories behind my faith, I think there would be more discussion about what specifically I believe. Because there's a few things that I see where it's like, I could see atheists questioning me on, say, the giant snake in the saga of Ragnar Lothbrok, or the dragon in the Legend of Sigurd, or the saga of Sigurd. And
yeah, that would be some.
There's also other things in mythology. There's fucking dwarves. There's goddamn dragons. There's elves. There's a significant portion of the population of Iceland believes in elves because of their Norse background, right? So I could see an atheist jumping into this, doing a lot of investigation, and coming up with questions that would be really good to place against me on the same level of, do you really believe in the flood, as put forward to a Christian? But that's generally not how these conversations go. And I haven't bumped into an atheist that was really familiar. I bumped into a couple of Christians that were more familiar than I thought they would be with Norse mythology, but seldom atheists.
If you have something that happened in the past like that, where there was a giant or a snake that's big or whatever, unless you have the bones to prove it, then you got nothing.
Right. And I don't believe in the giant snake. I don't believe in the dragon. Those are things that I look at as part of the stories. I don't even know if I believe that Sigurd existed. Or maybe he existed, but there's embellishments about him. Ragnar is another person. We don't know if he existed, but the sagas about him are lessons to be discussed. There's definitely historical figures, people that we know existed in the saga of Ragnar Lothbrok, but whether or not he existed is a matter of historical controversy. Generally, I go with Ragnar is the thing, but the saga around him, as is common with history, may be an amalgamation of a number of characters. There's a discussion that he might be a combination of King Sigurd and King Horik and a few other people.
I wanted to go back around to that question I'd asked where I said, these experiences of gods, if they're not coming from just your brain, wouldn't there be some way to detect them?
Say what?
if the experiences of whatever X, Y, and Z God isn't just one that's in your brain, that is to say,
that's another thing I don't know how you would quantify. So let's say that you had a portable MRI or something like that you could map out what's going on in the brain every time you see a spiritual experience. You wouldn't be able to say whether or not the spiritual experience is caused by the activity in the brain, or the activity in the brain is being caused by the spiritual experience.
Well, wouldn't there be some way to measure that there is a spiritual thing going on in the first place? I mean, the signal
that research has been done. There's people will show images and try to invoke somebody in an MRI machine or whatever to have a spiritual experience, and we see activity in the brain. There's certain parts of the brain that get activated when people are having what they describe to be a spiritual experience. That's been a controlled thing before, and we see certain parts of the brain light up, and they're similar to other experiences. I think their experience similar to like romantic experience. But
yeah, we can trick your brain into thinking you love somebody,
right?
I mean,
and it's
hypothetically, we don't do it.
If you crack open someone's brain and then you do something to the brain in order to elicit a spiritual experience, that still doesn't give you anything, because
what I'm saying is that we know that we can, mess with somebody's brain and make them experience all sorts of things, or not experience all sorts of things. And of course, I would say that death is the biggest non-experience you can have. Unfortunately, you're not experiencing, so you don't know what it's like, I guess.
Right.
But what I'm asking is, since we know that these things happen in the brain, that's not in question. What I'm trying to find is if there's a way to say, okay, if there's a signal coming to the brain to activate,
whether or not you can quantify the cause, I don't think you can do that.
Well,
unless you know what the cause is before, like, the experiment
that's
happens.
what I'm saying is the cause appears to be natural, then why not go with that?
Because there's no way to quantify whether or not the cause is natural. So let's say that you induce the experience, and you're inducing the experience, and you're tickling the same place that happens with a spiritual experience by influence. I think that Tyler has just posted in the side chat that you can induce spiritual experiences by introducing the temporal lobe to a micro seizure.
Yeah.
Okay. Does that mean that that doesn't mean anything about whether or not spiritual experiences are or are not induced by the gods? It just maybe the gods induced the temporal lobe into a micro seizure. Maybe that's what happens during a spiritual experience, and that's the side effect of interacting with the gods. And it's something that can be artificially created. Like, it's that those two concepts can be held by the same person.
Isn't there a problem?
Oh yeah, we can do that there, and we can do that here.
Isn't there a problem fundamentally with something not being testable?
Say what?
Isn't there a fundamental problem that it is not testable? That we can't, that there's no...
I think it creates problems.
Well, I would say to the defense of that, though, I mean, I'm not claiming to be a string theorist here, but the math in string theory works out perfect, and it's ultimately unfalsifiable, period. I mean, you can't falsify string theory.
That's not necessarily true.
Well, I mean...
String theory is a mathematical model. If they show the math to be wrong, it's falsified.
That's true.
But the math wasn't shown to be wrong. The math worked.
But it's falsifiable. If the math is wrong, it's falsifiable.
I would say that if everybody on the planet was having the same spiritual experience, polytheism would be falsified.
What?
Yeah. Maybe I'm talking about something else.
How would that falsify polytheism? One God just could say, "Oh, I want everybody to have the same experience."
I guess that's true. You could probably polytheism. I think would have less evidence at that point. Or if there were no spiritual experiences, then why proffer polytheism at that point?
But the whole thing, I think, is, look, if multiple people are having a similar experience, now granted, it could obviously be hallucinations. Let's just grant that. But let's say something that is recorded, something where they can go back and the skies part, or as somebody used to like to use the example, all the stars lined and spelled the name Allah. Right, I'm going to take that as a supernatural thing, and I'm okay with that. Some supernatural being is causing that to happen. I think that you're justified to have that belief. Could that be the case? No, it could be something else. But we're talking about beliefs here, and I think people put a lot of emphasis on oh, well, you could be wrong. Well, sure, but they're beliefs, so you justify that belief.
I have a really good counter, but
hang on, the conscious atheist who sees something of a magnitude of that nature that wouldn't stop and pause and go, can I attribute this to a deity and be rational to do so, I think is being irrational.
The counter to that is that we already have stars that draw out mythological entities.
No, they rearrange themselves. Rearrange is the word.
No, I understand that, but they don't have to rearrange themselves, Steve. They're already that way.
There you go. Must be polytheism.
Right.
What we have here is two things. We have a naturalistic explanation, which is mundane, perhaps, but it's one we've seen work and we know works, and we can test it. We can understand it to some degree of success, and we can do something with it. We can invent things with it. And then we have this, well, it could be, it could all be the Red King stream. It could be magic. A wizard did it.
Fucking category error, dude. I think that it's the difference between having a science book and an English book, and then reading the science book and going, oh, great, I've learned good science. But the English book doesn't help me with the science, so it's worthless.
No.
It's not part of my model. Why do I need the English book?
No, it's not. Because either the experience in my brain is just part of how my brain works, or it's something that I can't falsify or test in any way, shape, or form. What good is that?
I think that either position, you wind up with something you can't falsify in any way, shape, or form.
But one I can actually do something with.
I think you can do something with both.
What can you do? What can you do with the idea of gods?
You don't lose naturalism, you don't lose science when you're polytheist.
You do lose naturalism. Wait, you don't lose science, but you absolutely lose naturalism.
What can I do with the idea of gods?
You just eliminate an assumption. That's all that it is.
What can I do with the idea of gods?
There's a ton of benefits to religious practice that we went into in the previous.
No. What can I do with it?
You just asked what you did, and then when I answered, you say no.
I got this awesome beard out of it.
What the hell?
What can I do with it other than I can feel good? Okay, no, I want
It's not whether you can feel good. Asked and answered in the previous discussion. I don't understand what you're asking for. It's you're saying, what can I do with this? Except all the things that you can do with it are irrelevant. That doesn't make any sense. Why are you asking that question that way?
With the naturalistic explanation that brains just do stuff that might or might not make somebody think that there's, whatever that they want to call a god. There's that, which is what I stand by. I think that that's all it is that just people's brains do weird things sometimes. Then there's the one that's oh no, there's really actually gods out there that are causing these things to happen in our brains in an untestable, unfalsifiable, unknowable way. We maybe the gods are just toying with our brains. We just don't know, and it's, and that's what good does that idea do? And I'm not talking about good in the sense of, well, because somebody felt that
you want to know the benefits, except for you don't want to hear about the benefits.
Well, the benefits of art.
Can you explain to me a benefit without using any of the benefits? It seems to be how you're asking the question, which is incredibly frustrating.
Yeah, what are the benefits? Let's just let me.
We already went through that in the previous Hangout.
All right.
Where
So it'd be what, art and community or whatever, but you can have.
Yeah, we're talking about the communal aspect of it.
Okay, you can have.
There's a personal revelation aspect of it.
Is there anything you cannot have without the God? That is,
what do you mean?
That with the God I can do X, but if I don't have the God, I cannot do X.
You can't commune with the God without the God.
And what benefit is that?
You wind up removing, if you remove the.
But if there's no God,
what you're asking anymore.
If there's no God to commune with,
right?
I'm just communing with myself anyway. What benefit is it to add the God?
There's a few atheist pagans that run with it for the therapeutic aspect, like I was talking about earlier, and that they don't see very much as lost from that, right?
I think what's
for me is you're asking about belief. Like, can you do ritual without gods on the other side of it? Yeah, I guess.
I think it's
But-
therapeutic for people that use religion because they have no kind of moral code themselves. You know, they're sociopaths and they use religion to prevent going out and doing all these horrible things because they have no
that's not
understanding.
not the only people that it benefits, and you know it.
But no, I didn't. Did I say that was only?
No.
Okay.
It's when
that
you
is a
come in with an
benefit.
example like that includes fucking psychopaths.
Well, I'm not saying you're
that
one of
where
those
we're going
people,
with
but
this?
you know what? You might be a psychopath. You look like everybody else, and that's kind of the criteria. So you never know.
Speaking of unfalsifiable claims.
Yeah, that's kind of where I'm going. Is that the same that Tyler is saying is the same area of the brain activates when community with the deity is the same area that activates when you're talking to yourself. That you're just saying, well, it could be a god. There's no way to show it isn't a god. That's the whole point. There's no way to show it is a god. So why think it is? Why not think that it's the natural explanation?
It's like we're asking the same question over and over, and if I answer, then it sounds like I'm repeating myself in the same way over and over again. And I don't know why this keeps happening. So, all right, if you, on the one hand, if you could have experiences and embrace you can have experiences and embrace the experiences as face value, and that's one way of understanding what you're going through. Or you can assume that the experience is false when you're going through it and have this explanation. My understanding is to say, if I'm having this experience, I can trust it unless I have reason not to. And when we're talking about an unfalsifiable position regarding gods, as long as I'm not harming anybody, because I think that if you're harming somebody, there's an extra level of justification that needs to go in there.
Is there a condition?
Okay, that's a different question.
Is there a condition in beliefs that you have to have a falsification criteria? I mean, there's for science.
I don't know. You're asking whether or not. Say that again.
Do you think there has to be a falsification criteria for beliefs? We're not talking about falsificationism as far as science. We're not talking about scientific theories. We're talking about beliefs.
It depends on whether or not you're interested in believing in reality. If you're interested in believing in reality, and if there's parts of reality that do not have falsification options,
but
right?
Falsification is part of science.
Then that's what you're presented with.
Right?
That is the situation you're in.
But
so you either embrace it or you don't.
But I'm saying, is there something in philosophy that makes falsificationism also not only applicable toward a hypothesis or theory, but also toward one's beliefs?
Say again.
Did I lose you again?
Yeah,
I'm asking you. In philosophy, there's something called falsificationism, right? Which is a philosophy of science that a theory or hypothesis must have a falsification criteria in order to be considered to be a theory or hypothesis, right? That's how you test it. You test to see if the null hypothesis, if you can reject it to accept the claim of the hypothesis, right? So I'm asking you, is there something in philosophy that also extends falsificationism to beliefs? Because I don't know if there is or isn't.
We're talking about logical inconsistency.
Well, I mean, can I have a belief but I don't have there's no falsification criteria, but can I still believe that I have, can I still hold that belief and be justified? Nobody was kicked out. There was a phone quake. Does that make sense? Now, I'm not saying there's no value to falsification of beliefs. I'm just saying, is there something in philosophy that states beliefs have to have a falsification criteria? Because I honestly don't know. I'm asking.
I'm trying to figure out what because I think that I've answered when I'm talking about logical inconsistencies, but I don't know what else you're asking about.
In order to hold a belief, does it have to have a falsification criteria?
I don't know the answer to that.
Okay. So they could or could not.
Yeah.
You could have a belief that doesn't have a falsification criteria and be rational to hold it.
Probably.
I don't know.
I think so.
See why not, but
I don't see why not either. Now, maybe there is. I don't know what it is. I guess the recent frustration has been that it seems like the same question gets asked over and over again when we're talking about that justification on belief.
That, you know, I'm looking for a way to verify this externally rather than internally.
Sure.
And
I think that's part of the challenge of talking about these things, is that there isn't a way to externally justify any of the available positions on the subject.
Right.
Any of them.
That's, to me, it's just me. I'm not saying anyone else should do this. That's a problem.
Right. But however, everyone picks one. Everyone.
But we have, when we go with, you know, the mundane stuff, and we go, okay, well, how does this work? We get this thing, science, and we can make computers and do all this cool stuff with it. But when we go with this mystical stuff, you know, it's just like whatever we can make out of it, whatever we can do with that, we could do it without pretending that it's really real. We could still draw cool things. We could still talk about fantasy creatures or whatever, and we don't have to say that there's fairies at the bottom of the garden for the garden to be beautiful.
Okay.
So I just don't see the need of the fairies. You know, it's like you're in a beautiful garden. That's enough. We don't need to add fairies to make it even more beautiful. And somebody say, well, I had an experience of the fairies. Well, okay, can that be tested by anybody else? No. Okay, then it's just in your brain, and that's it. That's the end of it. It's not. That's where it happened. It didn't happen anywhere else but your brain.
Yeah, that's an assertion that I'd want to see you back up. Right, do you understand that? Like, so, okay.
There's no evidence.
If you're going to be saying no, there's not proof that there's no evidence because we have the experience. The experience is evidence. So when you're going to be saying, when you're going to say it did not happen, this is the nature of the universe. The nature of the universe is that there are no gods. Now, that is the choices that we've discussed about God belief. You're picking one and running with it, right? You're picking there aren't any and running with it. As far as how you live your life, regardless of whether or not you hold it as a philosophical position or as a claim you're willing to make, that's how you live your life. Everyone does this. They hold to one of them as far as how they function.
Well, I used to believe in the fairies and think that the fairies were real, and then I went looking for the fairies and found no evidence of them, and I had no reason to keep believing that they were real other than my prior.
You didn't have any experience regarding the fairies, right?
Yeah, I had all sorts of experiences.
Okay. So if you had experiences, then you say you went looking for evidence. What were you looking for that was consistent with the claim?
Evidence that it was there.
Like?
Evidence that it wasn't just in my own head.
What evidence would you expect?
Anything.
Okay, that's not an answer. Do you understand that?
Oh, God. Okay. How do I explain this?
If I say evidence and then if I say what evidence and you say evidence, that doesn't answer the question.
I can make up in my brain a green talking cat that I'll name Ravi and write about him and talk about it, and other people can come and read the story and think things about it. I
want to cut this analogy off at its head. This is one of the most frustrating analogies that atheists run.
Too bad I'm in charge. I get to do it anyways.
No, I'm gonna combat you on this. This is one of the things.
So it doesn't
I don't
matter.
give a fuck if you're in charge.
Oh, okay. Well, then I guess since you don't care if I'm in charge.
If you want to kick me from this hangout, go for it.
Oh, don't do that.
Yeah, you know. I'm just saying.
But I'm going to say that this is one of the most frustrating analogies that atheists put forward.
Frustrating. Okay, you don't want
the frustrating aspect of it is that it is completely
all
disanalogous.
You have is faith, and all I have is facts. As long as you have faith and I have facts, I'll always be right, and you'll always be wrong. How about that?
No, we're talking. Hey, so if we're going to be talking about God beliefs,
have faith in these gods that nobody, Odin or whatever, Thor or whatever. Yeah, that's nice. You had some experience. You don't even want to share the experience because it's personal. Well,
right.
You were, whatever happened to you, we don't know. Maybe you were high. Maybe you were drunk. Maybe anything. I don't know. Or maybe you just had a brain injury? We don't know. But you had some experience. Nobody's going to say you didn't. Well, maybe you didn't, but it doesn't matter. I don't care. You could be making it up for all I care. It doesn't matter if you had it or didn't. What I'm asking is whether or not it's really, really true in reality or just in your brain. And the thing that no theist has ever been able to show is that it's anything more than just in their brain. So there's no reason to think that it is anything more than just in their brain, because the burden of proof, like it or not, is with you.
No.
Right.
Yes, Steve. Yes, Steve, it is. And I know you want to defend your agnosticism.
What atheists don't do is, all right, so with theists, we're putting forward this idea of like, hey, and for me, I'm saying, yeah, sure, we're in a position in which this is unfalsifiable. The only evidence that I have is my experiences, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, right? And, but when people are asking for evidence beyond those experiences, beyond those texts and so on, which the text can be reduced to claims, fine. What do you want? What specific thing do you want? What is an example of evidence that you would want to have provided? And don't just say fucking evidence.
Empirical evidence.
When you just say category error, we're talking about something that is unfalsifiable, and you want the fucking empirical evidence. What the fuck do you want?
Anything. You don't have it. You can't give it.
If I'm saying that it's a non-empirical claim, and your position is, hey, if for your non-empirical claim, I would like empirical evidence. Do you understand how stupid that sounds?
That's a category error, because the problem. DM, he's not. Listen, DM, listen. I'm talking. He's not positing an empirical claim. Okay, in that regard. And second of all, he's met his burden of justification numerous times over.
No, not to me, not to myself. Well,
it doesn't matter if it does to you. He has to himself. That's what the burden of justification is.
Okay, to himself.
The burden of justification has nothing to do with you in this regard.
You
don't
that's
matter.
My experience. That's my belief.
Listen to me.
Mine is justified because I've had that experience of it.
But DM, listen to me. He has a burden of justification to himself. Do you agree?
I think he has a burden of justification for anybody at all times.
And I believe he's met his burden of justification.
That's not good enough. That's not good enough. It can't
be.
Why
is he not justified to believe what he believes?
Because there's nothing other than your own belief.
That's your opinion. That's not how it works, though.
There's no test. There's nothing to it. It's just a belief. That's all it is. It's faith. It's pure faith. It's not good enough.
But you're employing logical positivism and verification.
I don't care what I'm applying. I'm applying. You can say it's common sense. You can say whatever it is. I don't care. I want. Well,
that's not how rationality is determined.
No. Yeah. Well, whatever. Take your agnosticism with you. Okay. I don't care.
Well, you're the one being irrational at this moment.
No, I'm not. I'm asking.
Yes, you are by definition.
I'm asking for proof, and you're saying, "Well, there's no proof."
You just had a category error that Ocean pointed out. That's irrational.
It's no more good than magic.
Yeah,
that's all.
Ocean, he doesn't understand the problem here.
No, I do understand.
He literally is being irrational and not understanding the category error that he's making.
No, it's no categorical area. That's an apologetic bullshit move, and you know it. Because it's the same thing that Matt Slick would do.
We're talking about something that doesn't have. It's not an empirical claim.
Something that's in your brain. I agree.
Not an empirical claim.
Yeah, because it's in your brain, just like any other imagined, made-up, pretend thing.
Okay. You just made a claim. So what? But again, DM, you're positing your own worldview onto his.
No. You don't even know if I have a worldview.
Then saying that he's not making his burden of proof. He's asked you what he wants, and he even says he's not making empirical claim. And then you ask for empirical. Then you ask for empirical evidence. That is irrational to do.
You can't have that because I'm not positing something that has that. So what are you looking for? Oh, I'm looking for this. Oh, I don't have that. What else?
Well, hang on. Same thing.
What do you got? You got nothing but your.
If you're saying that you're looking for something that wouldn't appear, so what you're saying is you want me to provide you with something that would disprove the position.
Right.
Why would you ask for that?
Why wouldn't I?
You're asking for something. You want me to provide you with evidence that would disprove my position to support my position.
That would be like me.
Why would you want me to do that?
That'd be like me asking.
I want you to realize
that doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, that would be me like asking.
Belief doesn't make it.
Yeah, listen to me. When I'm back in here, I'm in charge. Okay, so stop interrupting me.
No, you said I was in charge.
When I'm here, I can take over. So listen.
Oh, okay.
When there's no difference between what you're asking him to do. If I'm saying to a hard atheist and I tell him, you know what, prove to me your position by you showing God, that would falsify his position. That's what you're asking Ocean to do. How do you not understand that?
No.
Well, you say no, but you literally are asking him to falsify his own position.
Can we try a different tact?
And by the same token,
there is no route that I can take to, other than the analogy that he didn't want that was so horrible. I hate this analogy, you know.
It's a stupid analogy. It's one that's been tried over and over again. It's like the dragon in the closet, or the, you know, I have the full cast of Rambo hiding inside of my bathroom. They want to take me on a magical marshmallow ride. Is that a coherent belief? Sure. Is it one that's historically held across the world? No.
That doesn't matter.
That's the problem.
But it's historically, if we hold it for long enough, it becomes historically verified, then doesn't it?
Across the world, throughout human history.
Oh, so now there's another perimeter. But if we spread this belief across the world and we hold on to it for long enough, then it suddenly becomes.
If you have a belief that has been throughout the world across human history, then yeah, I think it's worth exploration.
Well, how long
if you had all of throughout human history, meaning from the start to now.
But why couldn't it be a new thing? A new experience that nobody's ever had.
You're pulling something out of your ass. Like, well, I agree with you that it's possible to come up with a logically coherent position that sounds like nonsense, right? I agree with you on that. That's totally reasonable.
So how do we differentiate your
problem is that it's completely disanalogous to what's happening when we're talking about people that are religious, specifically when we're talking about polytheism, because it is something that has been experienced throughout the world, throughout human history.
It's been experienced in the brain and nowhere else.
Right. If you want to have that explanation, that is an explanation that works, and I can give you that. But there is also the explanation of polytheism also works. And the problem is that there isn't a way to quantify which one is accurate.
But no, because there would be some way. There should be some way. You would expect there to be some way to test it.
Right. If you think that there is, then quantify your side of it, and you'll win a fucking Nobel Prize in philosophy, and everybody will be fucking happy with it, and we can all become atheists in the world.
Why wouldn't the theists?
Fantastic. If there's another way to do it, and polytheists are right, then we'll do that, and all win a fucking Nobel Prize in philosophy, and everybody will become polytheists for the rest of time. But as it stands, the spiritual problem is one that is, from where we're sitting, unsolvable because of the lack of empirical claims behind it. And you know what? That's just part of the puzzle. It is an unsolvable puzzle sitting in front of us.
I don't think it's a puzzle at all. I think it's really the fact that the brains work the way that brains work. There's no puzzle or mystery there.
Okay, but DM, that's what you're positing as an explanation. You haven't
because it's actually an explanation. We can actually.
The difference between
you guys stop interrupting me when I'm in the middle of a sentence. Seriously,
sure, go for it.
I like interrupting you.
Okay, DM.
We're interrupting each other too, which is part of the problem.
I wouldn't do is done. You've just given your explanation for what you think is an explanation, your reasoning, but you haven't shown why he's not reasonable.
You know, from the beginning of human history,
to have his belief, you have not shown why he has not met his burden of justification. You've only asserted your reasoning for your beliefs. You have not demonstrated he has not met his. Not even remotely close.
In his way of thinking, he has certainly justified it for himself. And no one else, but yeah,
I think he's wrong.
That's a bullet in throughout conversations with me that I bite. It's like, yeah, sure. Is it possible that atheism is true? Sure.
Okay, Tyler says, from the beginning of human history, we thought disease was caused by spirits. That doesn't make it any more correct.
No, it doesn't.
Nobody will claim it would. That's not an argument. Nobody's made that argument.
Tyler is correct on that.
Yeah. Nobody made that argument to the contrary.
But maybe the things that we understand that are causing diseases are actually the spirits putting those things into motion. How would I tell the difference? I couldn't. So why add that other layer to it? If one answer explains it, That's good enough. I don't need, well, maybe it's still this.
For
Save
you.
a step. You know, what if you're comfortable with saying, well, God made the universe, why add that step? Just save a step.
Am I correct that you've had 0 spiritual experiences in your life, right?
Incorrect. But I don't call them spiritual because I call them natural now.
Okay.
But it would be irrelevant, even if I've never had it, because if they're not verifiable,
it's not irrelevant because it provides context and perception. That if people that do have spiritual experiences, give them a little bit, give that argument a little bit more credence.
No,
and that when you're saying that you have, I'm going to trust you that you have, right? So, but you discount them for whatever reason. I don't care. It doesn't matter. The one reason why I don't share them, and I also don't ask for other people to share them, is that it's irrelevant. What they were is completely irrelevant, because the explanations, regardless of what they are, still wind up at the same end of the road. It's the only thing that is interesting about telling stories relating to spiritual experiences is a narrative magic to it, and that people can be convinced or fucking not, you know. Like either the story is compelling or it isn't. But we can agree between the two of us that otherwise rational human beings have spiritual experiences, right? It's just something that people describe, and they're otherwise rational human beings. We're not talking about people with psychosis. We're not talking about people with mental illnesses, blah, 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 so on such as. We're talking about people that are otherwise rational, have these strange experiences where they feel a presence or whatever. So
yeah, that happens. I wouldn't
that's
call
something
it
that happens.
Yeah.
Now, there are multiple... There's multiple ways to explain that. One is to embrace the experience first. Another is to say that it's an illusion. Both of which, to me, are equally viable. And that's something that I want to make entirely clear. They're equally viable explanations because there isn't a way to quantify the answer between the two.
And so that's where we disagree, obviously.
So if you have a way to quantify the answer between the two, I want to know what it is.
And let's clear something up.
I'm trying to get to that. I'm trying to think of something that would, with like somebody is behind you, for example, the feeling that you're being watched or whatever. They've done like a test where you have this like robot arm, and you're controlling the arm, but when you push your hand in, there's a delay, and then it pokes you a little bit later, and so then the person will say, "Yeah, it feels like somebody else is poking me," and over and over again, people will say, yes, it doesn't feel like me. It feels like somebody else is doing this. It feels like there's somebody else in the room, even though I know there isn't anyone else in the room. So there's been experiments like that test the weirdness of feelings. There was a group of scientists in some big giant laboratory who all began saying, we think that this place is like haunted or something. And they evacuated all of them. They looked throughout the place. They found this old fan that was spinning that they hadn't known about, and it was causing this low vibration that was affecting their inner ear, and that's what was making them feel like there was a presence in the room when there wasn't. It was just the sound. There was an explanation. Now, they didn't know what it was at first, but they found it eventually. There's always been a naturalistic explanation for these phenomenon, and to think that, well, but this one time when I'm having this experience that's really weird, this is the time that it's actually really a spiritual experience and not just mundane. It's actually a god this time. It's actually a ghost this time. It's really my ancestor this time.
We get the point. Can I clear something up real quick? Ocean. I want to. You're being charged with argumentium ad populum, and I didn't hear you make an argument ad populum fallacy. You said there were these things that were worthy to be explored. You didn't say X is true because the population believes.
No, he didn't. He didn't make that fallacy.
So I didn't see any fallacy whatsoever. But we have people saying that you committed that.
I'm not. I'll clarify that as well. That I'm not saying.
You didn't. Yeah. So
let me say it so they don't say that you're making excuses for me. So if because I know that whenever someone's in a room like this that's making a theistic claim, the side chat goes nuts. So
that's true.
I think we can.
By the way, my passion is
something that happens.
Trying to match the chat room. That's why.
All right. So what I'm the validity that I'm bringing to the table as far as with people believing this kind of stuff throughout human history. That's the reason. That's the puzzle that's there. That's the reason why it's worthy of being explored. With the idea of the green cat man that talks that's invisible, or the cast of Rambo and a marshmallow inside of my bathroom that wants to take me on a magic ride. These aren't claims that are part of the puzzle that's been facing humanity forever. There are certainly counterexamples that can be brought up to say, well, it's something that has a similar sort of problem, but the disanalogous part of it is the huge history behind it, that humanity has been kind of faced with this forever.
Isn't that part of the crux of philosophy?
We haven't been faced with the problem of the cast of Rambo and a marshmallow inside of my bathroom. We have been faced with the puzzle of, are there gods throughout history? Now, sure, there's other explanations that can be put forward.
It's been a big part of philosophy for thousands of years. That's what you're saying, right?
Yeah, and that's why I was saying is that if you have a way to quantify these things, get it, put it together, get a PhD, or not get a PhD, but get a fucking Nobel Prize, because nobody else has been able to pull it off. And not to say that it's impossible to be able to do it. Maybe at some point we will develop the godoscope, as far as one of my previous conversations mentioned.
You know, you make
there'll be a way to be able to figure that out. Some sort of advancement will come along in which we'll be able to falsify these claims. And maybe the answer will be incredibly interesting and something that neither one of us have even thought of. But for now, it's the puzzle.
But
and we're sitting there with the puzzle.
You make a really good point that I've noticed that people, when there's a theist in the room, they don't give them the charity. They don't give them, they throw out all these things a lot, saying, oh, this person's making this error, this error, when there's no errors being made. A lot more than they do with a normal person. It's like certain people compartmentalize and they lose all sense of the ability to critical think when they see a theist in the room for some reason. And I see it quite often. I also see it with other atheists too. I mean, I've seen atheists that to me are just the most irrational people in the world. Right? I mean, we run into them all the time. So it doesn't matter whether they're theist or an atheist. You have to apply the same standard. If somebody's making a fallacy or not. There's no fallacy that he made, and yet people are claiming that he's making a fallacy just because he's a theist, which makes no sense to me.
Yeah, sure. Maybe there's a little bit of bias involved in that, but it's what I'm happy to do is just ignore that aspect of it and say, all right, if you're accusing me of a fallacy, I want to know where it was made so that I can amend it. And if there was no fallacy made, then fine. There wasn't a.
I want to clarify that my passion and all that is the argument at hand, and not. I don't detect any fallacy. I think that, as I said earlier, what Ocean is saying is consistent within Ocean's framework. I just disagree with the framework because there's one thing that's not testable and one thing that could be testable, and that's we have these experiences in the brain. Nobody's disputing that. And I say, and then that's it. There's no reason to posit anything more. I don't want to bring up Occam's razor because that's been abused too much, but that's it. That's the explanation we have. We can generate these experiences on demand or make them stop on demand. Not that we necessarily would because of ethics, but we could. And, well, we have in a few cases. So that's a thing that I can test. Whereas the other thing is I can't even test it because it claims to be untestable. And I go, well, how do you even know it's not testable? Because you can't test it to know that it's not testable. And, you just go into this infinite regress of, well, but maybe it is. How do you know it isn't? And it's like...
Unfortunately, that's the nature of the conversation. I wish it was different. I really do.
But it shouldn't work that way. You know what I'm saying? That these gods, if they really exist, as I said in the beginning... they don't seem to be willing to clarify themselves to us, and I think that that's a flaw. And
that's the different religions have different approaches on that. Like with Christianity, the idea that God will not clarify himself is antithetical to the description, right?
Yeah, totally. Because
like if he wants to have a relationship with us, he wants to love us.
You can't have a relationship with somebody you're not even sure that exists.
The general view among pagans, specifically Germanic pagans, is that the gods have bigger shit to fucking worry about than us. Like it's whether or not they want to clarify. That's the way that we're viewing this conversation. That the gods don't clarify themselves to us, therefore we shouldn't believe in them. You might be able to make the argument that there's no reason to revere them, or no reason to worship them, right? Because they seem to be, their concern with us seems to be secondary, and that is true. I can see that. Like, if they exist, there's definitely a disconnect there. But that doesn't change the fact that there's definitely people that feel some kind of relationship with these entities. Now, is it true? I don't know. I can't tell you. I can't tell you either way. But there's certainly experiences of my life that have led me to the position that I'm sitting in.
It's tough. It's difficult because that's why I turned on my own webcam, as I realized I was getting too emotional. I needed to see myself to, kind of go, okay, I need to.
Yeah, that's fine. I think that this conversation definitely had a blowout.
Well, it gets frustrating. It's like you feel like the other person doesn't understand what you're saying, and so you project your own feelings onto them and all that.
I had the same problem.
It's like
we let each other have it there for a second.
You understand. I think you do understand why.
No, right? No, I understand your position entirely. It's
it's like.
I think most people understand. Oh my God! I think most people understand each other's positions. It really drives me nuts when people tell me I don't understand. I'm the first person to tell people when I don't understand something. I don't understand it. I am not hesitant. I'm not fucking Ronnie. I will say I don't understand this. Explain this to me. I do this quite frequently, even. But when people tell me I don't understand, when I do understand, that gets a little annoying, right? And I think most people here understand these things. We understand each other's positions. There's just a disagreement there, but it's not a lack of understanding.
There's a lot of talk in the side chat that
I roared at somebody that
hold
said
on.
I'm like a lion.
Let me make this point real quick. Yeah, I look. You do look kind of like a lion. Some people are saying that I'm applying a logical framework to what I'm saying and ending it with "therefore it's true." I'm not going to be saying "therefore it's true." That's not a position that I hold.
No.
My position is that you can't say "therefore it's true" on any of the sides of this equation. But that doesn't mean that you can't. There's people that hold different positions on belief. They justify it in different ways. I'm certainly one different position that is definitely a minority in this conversation, right? And I'm happy to recognize that most people are either monotheist or atheist, or agnostic, as Steve is sitting. But therefore it's true. I think it's completely unreasonable to say that we don't know. Therefore, yes, Odin exists. That's silly, right? That doesn't make any damn sense. But there's experiences that I have in my life that lead me to the position where it's like, yeah, I'll believe this. I'll roll with it. This is a game I'm willing to play right now until I'm shown with something else. And I don't think there's anything hugely objectionable about that. The same with atheists. I don't think there's anything hugely objectionable about them saying, well, this is how I feel about the result of this. Experiences aside or whatever, that I don't think there's any validity to it, and that's not a game I'm willing to play. Fine, don't make the bet. I don't think that you'll receive any punishment for it. It's not something that's like, as far as the afterlives that I believe in, you go to Valhalla regardless of whether or not you're an atheist if you die gloriously in battle. And it's either way. I'm honestly, I'm agnostic on the afterlife. Right. It's not a reason why I'm in this religion.
Yeah. Could I ask you a problem? I'm sorry. Hey, Ocean, can I ask you a personal question about your personal experience you don't want to share? But
yeah, go for it.
All right.
I'll tell you if it's not something answerable, but yeah.
Did anything in the mythology, did your personal experience you don't want to share make you believe anything?
What do you mean?
I mean,
did it make me believe something? Like, yeah, like, did I have a choice in the matter or something?
That is related to what you bring up all the mythology from the Norse gods.
Someone said Norse polytheism is like spiritual CrossFit. I actually kind of like that description. All right, so you're saying did the experience make me believe?
Well, you said you had a first experience. I assume you didn't believe before that, but
Right.
As far as
I talked a little bit about my journey before this.
Yeah.
It's like I went from Christianity into Celtic Christianity into Celtic polytheism, eventually into Norse polytheism, multi-traditionalism. But a lot of the conversations don't go into the multi-traditionalism aspect. We stick into the epistemology arguments, because that's the conversation that's more common around here. But the experience that I had, I definitely put me in a position where I believed polytheism, I think.
Okay.
And I think that when examining philosophy about polytheism, there's a few authors that I've looked at, like John Michael Greer and Stephen Dillon, who both make logical arguments for polytheism that are really interesting, and that's strengthened. But as far as like where the seed came from, it's more from experience. That's what led me into it.
So you're saying you had a belief about polytheism, but not specifically Norse polytheism.
Right. The first steps into polytheism were Celtic.
And that was your initial experience.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
But one thing I do want to just say that, Ocean, I understand your frustration, especially like even with someone like me. I do understand your frustration because you are not making, I don't think you're making truth claims by saying your position is true. You're just saying that you believe you're justified in believing what you believe. Is that probably a better way to put it?
That's pretty much it. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think the frustration with someone like me, and I think maybe even with DM, is that, we all evaluate people's subjective beliefs. If someone's like, if right now there are thousands of people out there who said they've been abducted by aliens, share the same experience over hundreds of years, maybe even, the past 50 years since a while as well. And we judge those claims as being, not really credible in the same way if you told me you had a pet dog, for instance. So it's not that all claims really are at the same level, but we do judge claims in various different scenarios. So the claims that you're making, that you've had these personal experiences and that you've come to this grander conclusion about the afterlife and these type of things, not to say that they may not.
I'm agnostic on the afterlife,
but even though with everything that you're telling us about your religion could be true, just like those alien abduction stories could be true. But I think in the reality that I think we live in, when we try to judge that against the experiences that we all have and we all share, it seems less likely to be true. Would you be objectionable to someone having that view that your position may be less than likely to be true because, number one, it's grounded by your own personal experience. It's something that I can't verify at all. And second, because these types of claims are generally not, from our perspective, not really verifiable or can be judged to be true in any real way.
Yeah, as far as whether or not somebody is convinced by my position, if they are not convinced because they haven't had similar experiences, or that there isn't a falsifiable nature to it, I have no problem with that. Like, carry on.
I don't think even if I had the experience, whatever that was, that wouldn't be enough to convince me, because I require things to be externally verifiable. Otherwise, I would think it happened in my brain. It was a nice thing that happened.
Let me point something out, because in conversations with atheists, I've often asked, what evidence are you looking for? And when you said evidence, I got really frustrated. And I'll tell you. Sure. Let me tell you why. Because when I ask that question, I'll switch it to skeptic mode pretty quickly. That if someone puts forward an example of what would happen to them and which would make them believe, sometimes they often say, well, if Odin came down out of the sky, landed in front of me, and squeaked a clown horn or something like that, that it would be that would be enough for them. At which point I'm like, well, couldn't it be an illusion? You're laughing. If that experience happened, it could easily be dismissed as an illusion. You're muted. I don't know if you know that.
Yeah, I know.
Are you laughing at the clown horn? Okay, cool. That's what I thought he was laughing at. I wasn't sure.
Oh,
I was like, was what I said that ridiculous? I hope not, but yeah.
Oh, that would do it, I think.
So, like,
Oh,
let's talk about
it.
it for a second. Let's talk about it a second. Odin comes down, lands in front of you, says, "Hi, I'm Odin," squeaks a clown horn twice. Do you convert?
I'm like, all right.
Right.
I think that's maybe a way to convert me if he actually drops down and like a power or something like that.
But what Deconverted Man was just saying is that if he had an experience like that, he would dismiss it as being a hallucination. Why not dismiss that as a hallucination with that specific description? Like, I understand we're talking generally about spiritual, and maybe there is a reason to go into specifics with spiritual experiences on that level, because some people have had experiences like that where they actually see shit and they're otherwise, rational human beings without any form of psychosis. But
yeah, I've heard shit too.
So,
but I think it's auditory hallucinations, but whatever.
Right.
Or they're called hypnagogic hallucinations.
So, but if that experience happens to you and then you're just like, fine, I believe, and I'm a skeptic and I look at you with that experience, I'm like, okay, well, that was probably a hallucination, like standalone hallucination of some kind. But it still happened to you. Do you wind up sounding like me in a conversation or what? Like, what happens at that point?
Well, we can put this in a real world example. The alien abduction, the people who believe in Bigfoot, all these people who have these experiences.
Right. No, I think that alien abduction.
We can't, kind of verify, even though the experiences may seem silly to us. It's not. It's true that they've had real experiences. They've experienced something real. Like, you can talk to people who've been abducted by aliens now, and they'll tell you about the probes, how they look, and they'll have real experiences. But that doesn't deem their experiences to be. That doesn't deem their explanation for the experience to be justified. It could be another explanation. They could have been having a psychotic event. We don't know their state of being at that time. Only thing we know is they've had that experience. So that's the part that I don't think, the bridge that you're not connecting. You're connecting the experience, yes, but then there's also a bridge of how does this experience really account for what we think it accounts for, or is this person, because we know your mind.
I agree with you that
that was the funniest.
One of the issues with the with any trying to bring any sort of spiritual experience into a belief system is that there's not really any way to exhaustively investigate it, and that's just, again, as I've said over and over, that's just part of the puzzle that we're presented with, and great. That's with I do think I like the alien abduction example because I think that it's a very good counter to spiritual experiences. And that's one that I honestly don't really know what to do with for a lot, because there's definitely a lot of people out there that are like, yeah, I was abducted by aliens, and they stuck various tools inside of my rectum. Cool.
Like to do that.
It's not really in the it's not really in the realm of the broadness, or the as widespread to say as religion is, as far as being a puzzle that's presented with everybody. But it's definitely a good analogy. Like, I like that analogy better than, like,
yeah, with the aliens or whatever, all they have to do is land their ship in a well-populated area that has a lot of cameras and whatnot, like, say, New York or whatever.
Right.
And the thing is,
then there's the question: do the aliens want to be seen? Do they want to be known? Well, and the answer generally is no. They don't. They're trying to be stealthy about it.
We'll assume they wanted to, for whatever reason. Decided we enough playing around. Let's make our
land, right? Yeah.
And so I, watching that news feed, might go, maybe it's fake news. I'll go to New York and poke the thing, and I do that. And I'm like, well, okay, I verified it to some extent. Now I have to maybe rely on the experts to go in there and test it and poke it and prod it, because I could do that, but I wouldn't come up with decent results because I don't know what I'm doing. So, but then I'd have something to poke. I'd have something to prod.
But hold on.
This intangible thing that I don't. It's not even there to poke. Or if it is, it's unpokeable. So,
DM, have you ever heard? You remember? Have anyone in here also heard of the War of the Worlds event, in which they were reading a copy of
yeah,
Orson
right,
Welles'
yeah,
War of the Worlds
yeah.
over the
That's
radio, and people actually thought it was a real
Literate.
news event, and people started freaking out because they thought aliens were attacking the world.
Yeah,
So
people started hauling up their
H.G.
houses.
Wells. We've all read the books too. Seen the movies.
not reading the books, but there was a phenomenon when they were doing it over the
Steve,
radio,
so-
and everybody
Radio
believed
program.
that the aliens were attacking the planet, and then everybody kind of had this crazy belief, and people started stocking up and martial law and all this stuff, and all because they heard this on what they thought was a legitimate newscast over the radio. Save your children. So people can be easily fooled, and there are people to this day who think that newscast was actually a real newscast and not a fake newscast, and that was the cover story to cover up the newscast. So, with these beliefs,
1938.
I just one thing I would just suggest is that even though people do have these experiences, we do judge every experience. We do judge differently. It's on a gradient scale. All are not equal. The experience of me having a cat is different than the experience of me having a pink unicorn. Those things are different.
Ignore what I'm doing. I'm amusing myself. I don't know why. I just realized what I was doing.
Put your pants back on.
Yeah. Dion, can I do a thought experiment with you?
Oh yeah, I love thought experiments.
Just imagine you and I are who we are and everything. We have our first experience, and we get a sense that we're having some sort of event with a polytheistic entity. What would that be like to you? What would you think that'd have to be like? I mean,
I don't know what it would be like. I mean, I have no idea. I'd have to experience.
What would be fair to say about it?
Huh?
What would be fair to say about it?
If both of us are having the same
experience. I'm saying either one of us, Yeah.
Well, if it's an independent thing, like if it's something I experienced, even if it was visual or whatever, if I cannot duplicate it, if I cannot verify it with somebody else, or record it or whatever, then it's in my brain, and maybe that's the only place it is. And as far as I know, it's the only place it is.
I can't think of any reason that would convince you. If it was happening, there would be a way it would. If
it was actually there, that I should be able, hypothetically, I should be able to bring in my brother to see it and call the cops and get them to see it or whatever, and maybe we can't poke it because it's not, like I had this idea for a story where a rectangular red brick appears in the air and nobody can touch it, but it's just there and there's no explanation for it. Scientists can't figure it out, and so everybody comes up with different ideas of what it is, and the answer is we don't know what it is, and that's the answer.
So you don't think you would have any belief if it was something much more subtle than that?
If it's subtle, no. It has to be verifiable. It has to be testable. It has to be that more than just me, because I know that there are things I can come up with that seem real that aren't. And so it has to be more than just that.
Okay. I guess what I'm just curious about is, I've heard a lot of theistic events in people life that lead them to believe, and I was just wondering if there was any difference in the polytheistic, or if anybody else would say that they did, because I can't think of anything. I'm trying to think of what's that additional amount of information that makes it polytheistic over regular theistic.
I don't know. I mean, because I'm a skeptic, so I don't know.
Polytheist would be somebody who accepts there's more than one deity.
Yeah, but how would you have something happening to you that would make you believe in a polytheistic universe?
Because as I pointed out, beliefs don't, in the live chat, beliefs don't exist in a vacuum, right? There's no one belief that makes people believe certain things. It's a framework. So Ocean had numerous amount of beliefs that led him to believe. For him, the most rational answer to him is a polytheistic structure.
Okay.
I think now I understood your question, because I didn't know what you were trying to get.
I'm saying if we don't have Ocean's experience, but he tells it's polytheistic, what does that add?
Yeah, like maybe you and I had an experience, or thought I did, of a thing, and I said, I envisioned this blue elephant, and I think that's God. And you go, well, it was actually red elephant. And instead of fighting each other, we go, look, let's shake hands. Maybe we're both right. Now we've got two gods. And there you go. Polytheism must be right.
And that's fine. So again, in that particular case, both of you would be justified to believing what you believe, right? I mean,
I don't know. That's a real low bar for justifying what someone believes.
This is why various theories of truth are important, though. I mean, look at even in relativity. If one person is seeing a trajectory going in a line and the other person is seeing it as a parabola, both of them are right, even though both conditions cannot occur with respect to each individual person at the same time, right?
Well, Steve.
But do you agree that they're both correct, right? They're looking at the same phenomenon, and they're coming up with two very different things. One saying the proposition the ball travels in a line is true. The other one saying that's false. And the other one saying that the proposition is traveling in a parabola is true. And the other one saying that one's false. And they're having two diametrically positions on a proposition, and they're both correct.
That is a great example. But the only way I would rebut that would be saying is that you would agree that there are people out there that come to beliefs that you would consider to be irrational.
Yes.
Because based on the framework that Ocean seems to put out, any way you come to a belief, it would be justified, even if it's irrational. So
I don't think he's pointing that out.
Seems to be trying to converse what conclusions would be rational versus what conclusions would be irrational. Just because you have this framework doesn't mean, like right now, if a young Earth creationist
saying that at all, I think you just trying the hell out of him. To be honest with you.
I'm incredibly against what you just said.
I'm too. I don't know why you would attribute that notion.
One of the things that I hold is that if you're going to have true beliefs, would be rational beliefs. So if you're going to be holding a position that is irrational, then I think that you're holding a position that is untrue. Now, not all rational beliefs are true beliefs, but all true beliefs are rational.
I would agree with that.
Now, I think that atheism, monotheism, and polytheism all have situations in which you can rationally construct a worldview around them.
So the people in the audience know, because I hate to bring this up again, but they were unsure of this. So clarification purposes, how are you using the word atheism?
Me? Oh, I'm saying rejection.
You're saying rejection, which for the people that don't know would be
say what?
A positive assertion, right?
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, I'd use the claim-based definitions.
Okay.
The same ones that you do.
I told people that use the same ones as me, but they wanted to hear it from you. So
right, yeah, that's fine.
All right, well, thanks for doing this, everybody. I'm gonna go.
Assalamu alaikum.
Yeah, good talking with you, even if we did yell at each other a little bit.
Yeah, you know.
That's fine. Allowed to.
I'm fucking asshole.
Yeah.
DM, that's pretty mellow, actually. I think DM's got that's pretty mellow for DM. I've seen DM want to kill a bitch.
No, I think that what happened is like, and I think that Michael.
I'm done now.
Michael in the side chat made a comment about kind of the difference between this conversation and the street epistemology conversation.
Yeah.
Is they're very different style conversations. One was more combative, the other was more exploratory. And I think that's something that is interesting about SE is that it's getting atheists to do more exploring rather than being more competitive.
Yeah, and I think that's a problem. I mean, that's not a problem. I agree with that, but I mean, that's a problem that atheists, many of them, get in this combative mode, and unfortunately, it doesn't really add much to the conversation. We all do it. I'm a hypocrite. I do the same thing. At least I'm aware of that. But I try to do it with the flat earthers and the young earth creationists. But you know, I think when you have a civil theist, there's no reason, regardless, even if they're a flat earther, there's no reason to engage in that debase level, right, with them if they're not on that level.
But that's because I think a lot of people are, especially if you don't believe, people are trying to look for holes in the argument. So so they're hyper vigilant to everything that you say. Like earlier when Ocean was he literally said that he wasn't making a truth claim. but then everybody attributed to a truth claim, and then he had to kind of say, no, I actually said I wasn't making a truth claim. So I think everybody's very hyper vigilant.
I don't think that
they're theists.
Well, I think Ocean makes a truth claim in the far as if he's claiming a belief, that is a truth claim.
But he was claiming about the historical belief, and he was saying, and the people were saying it was the argument ad populum, but he wasn't saying that it was true because
right. That's different. That was not an argument.
It was supported his claim, and that's what I'm saying. Everybody was very hyper vigilant, trying to dispose of it, but not
right. And they're hyper vigilant when I step in and go, no, that's not. I don't believe that's a fallacy, and then people get on me. Oh, you're always protecting the theist. Okay, no, I protect not protect is the wrong word, but I will point out something that I think is wrong, regardless of the person's theistic or atheist, right? So
I think that you do like having theists on your channel, so you might be more prone to defending them because the room is usually weighted towards atheists.
Yes, yeah, and I'll add on that, because theists are scarce or something. Yeah. I think that if I can take the theist side and a person can make a really good argument against me and you, they've improved the argument across the board, right? They've done better by showing, oh look, Ocean's wrong, and look at Steve's wrong as well. That only makes the atheist argument even better if they can do that. Does that make sense?
Say again. I was reading something from Tyler in the side chat.
I hate you.
I know. I'm sorry. What did you say?
I said, look, if an atheist is making an argument against you, and I happen to agree that you have not committed a fallacy,
right?
Now they have to convince you and me. If they can do that, that's two people. That only then it makes their claim even more solidified. Right.
That's true. Yeah.
So,
and
you're not an easy target, though. But there are not that they're
I've
easy
been called out on fallacies.
That's true.
Before. One fallacy that I used to make a lot, that I'm more on the lookout for is I think it's called tuko or tu. Is that? Yeah, tuko.
That means you're doing something.
Appeal to hypocrisy.
Your actions are doing something else, and they use
it's appeal to the hypocrisy of the opponent, and that since the opponent has a hypocritical position, that the rest of what they're saying is also not true, and that's fallacious as fuck. Yes. So that's unreasonable hold. And I've done that a couple of times. I've been called out on it, and I'm now more vigilant on looking out for myself doing that.
Tuko is a subtle one.
Yeah, it's a hard one to spot. Yeah. Because it's not as obvious as, like, say, ad hom or something like that. But ad hom or even appeal ad populum is another more obvious one.
Ad hom is the most abused fallacy in of all of them.
Yeah,
people think if you insult somebody,
yeah, Rob is correct in the chat. That's and that's okay. Is whataboutism.
Ad hom would be your argument sucks because you're an idiot. That's not, your argument is wrong because you're an idiot. That's an ad hom. If I say your argument is wrong, let me show you all these reasons why you're wrong, and you're an idiot. That's just a tacked on insult. Okay, that's not an ad hom.
Well, you know what? I would. The only reason why I would disagree is I think the fallacy is the one that's probably most used, because you brought up a fallacy, then the statement must be false, which is not
that's not true either.
Yeah, so that I think is probably the most employed fallacy.
Yeah, no, that one's true too. That one's a sneaky one. The fallacy is basically saying that a person has made a fallacy, but that means that what they've said isn't true. And of course, that isn't always the case. They could have they could come to a true conclusion and it still be through a fallacy, right? That's the fallacy. But people, I think you're right, MP. I wouldn't say that's as popular as the ad hom, but it is definitely up there. A lot of people say, "Hey, look, you have a fallacy. How you got to that conclusion? Therefore, your conclusion must be wrong." No, it's just the conclusion might be wrong. It's not a rational conclusion to have based upon a fallacy. Doesn't mean it is wrong, right? Would you agree?
No, 100%. Yeah, no, I agree. I employ that a lot too. Sometimes I'm like, "Oh, you've employed a fallacy," and then I forget that doesn't mean your argument is incorrect.
So since we only got a few minutes left in this hangout, we're down to 4 people. You want to ask me your question, and then I can say live in front of anybody the answer that you don't believe my answer? MP? MP?
Oh, me? I thought you were talking to somebody else.
No, I'm asking you. You've asked me this question 10 times in a thread the last 4 hours. I want you to ask me it live so I can answer it live.
Oh, no. The definition of, you talking about the definition of
I don't care about definition. Ask me the question.
I am. Can someone who says they're agnostic,
That's not the question.
could they be a
No.
theist or
That's not the
could they be a
question.
non-theist?
That's not the question. It's
What
5
question are you
words.
talking
You
about?
believe in God. That's it. You've asked me
Oh,
that
you
question
said
how
no.
many
Yeah,
times?
you said no. I understand that.
Yeah, but you literally for the last 3 hours said I can't answer no to that question as an agnostic.
No, I was saying that agnostic. If you say you're agnostic, you don't answer the question.
No.
Because
I just answered it. I'm agnostic and I answered it no.
What I was saying is based on the term agnostic, the definition that you laid out, you could either be a theist or you could be, or not a theist. And I was based on the definition that you laid out, and that's why I put the 2 examples of I believe in God, but yet I don't know or believe it's known or notable. Okay, I actually wrote it out.
So MP, you asked me, do I believe in God? And you said as agnostic, I can't say no, right? But I do say no.
That wasn't my response. My response was
you did say you said wrong 3 times. Wrong,
yes,
wrong.
I was saying just by saying you're agnostic doesn't answer the question. You have to give me more information.
I didn't say I was agnostic. You asked me the question, do you believe in God? My answer was no. Simple as that.
I accept that.
Okay. And my reasoning for that is because I'm agnostic. Make sense?
Yes.
There you go. All right, we're on the same page. Because you kept telling me you can't answer no to that question if you're agnostic. You have to answer I don't know. And I'm like, I know if I believe in God or not. I would know if I have a God belief. I don't know if I have a belief in God or not. I obviously do not have a belief in God or to be a theist.
This I think is the difference with maybe writing it down in text, which may lose some of the translation. But I was explaining that if the question that from which Seb said, from what was in Encyclopedia for Philosophy from Stanford, what it was trying to explain my understanding of it is that if I ask you, do you believe in God, and you just say I'm a theist, that's obviously a yes. If you say you're an atheist, that's obviously a no. If you say I'm agnostic, it doesn't answer the question. You have to give me.
Nobody would ever answer that. You're asking a closed question. Do you believe in God? It's yes or no. That's a closed question. Nobody should be answering agnostic to that.
Some people on the thread were believing that by saying they're agnostic, they were answering the question.
That?
And I was addressing the fact that you could believe in God and be an agnostic, and you cannot.
Not according to how I use that word. No.
Yeah, it doesn't make sense to me.
That's the issue, because the definition and that's why I very clearly put the definition I believe in God and then put the definition of agnosticism with it, and you can see that the statement does it. It's a true statement. You can say I believe in God and be agnostic if you just
use it as an adjective, which I don't use it as. That's not how it's normally used. We use it.
I've never heard someone say I'm an agnostic purely as a means of just saying that they don't know. It usually has to do with the belief claim.
Yeah, well, that's what I was saying. If you asked me,
like if they say that they're an agnostic and there's no other identifier in it, when they're saying like agnostic atheist, yeah, that agnostic in that context is talking about knowledge. But when we're saying I am an agnostic,
but anybody who asks the closed question, do you believe in God? Why would they answer, I don't know? I know if I believe in God or not. If I believed in God, I'd be a theist. But anybody who doesn't believe in God is a non-theist. Agnosticism falls under non-theism. So why would I answer, I don't know if I have the belief in God or not? That would be saying I don't know if I'm a theist or a non-theist. I do know which one I am. The only one that couldn't answer that question would be a theological non-cognitivist. Because they would, in their own mind, not fall into either category.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Or a rock.
Oh yeah. No, I agree. But I want to. But here was the statement that I want to make. I want to make it very clear. I believe the nature and existence of gods is unknown and inherently unknowable due to the nature of subjective experience.
Which I don't hold.
And I also believe that gods exist. I believe you can hold those two beliefs and be justified.
But that problem is it's superfluous. All theists think that way unless they say otherwise.
But then let's know, because some theists can say they know God exists. So that's what I'm saying.
Well, I just said all theists say that unless they say otherwise. You just added an otherwise.
Well, and I want to make it very clear. That is taking the definition of agnostic, the one that you posted, and then taking the definition of theist and combining them to show that this could be a true statement. You can also have the true statement. I believe that the nature and existence of gods and gods is unknown and inherently unknowable, and I don't believe in the gods.
Right. So, I'm not saying it's not sensical. I've never said that. I've said numerous times in regards to hard atheism or hard theism, it's sensible, but I think it's redundant. Right? And if you want to use it that way, that's fine, but it doesn't eliminate the agnosticist position or the Gnosticism position. It's
no,
using
no,
it. It's
I'm not,
using
I'm
it.
not,
It's
I'm not trying to eliminate the agnostic.
it's using it in a different
What I'm
context.
doing is instead of just using the term, I use the definition to show that, that if you're holding to the position of agnosticism, you still have a threshold of theism or non-theism to then.
Not as I'm using it as a position.
But again, and that is from the definition that you had employed for agnosticism, and that's
The
why I'm trying to show you that it's inherently a knowledge claim, because the belief claim of whether God and God does not exist can easily be attached to that claim.
Okay, MP, again, for the millionth time, listen to me carefully. Agnosticism, as I define it, as the SEP uses it, agnosticism is someone who's agnostic towards the proposition, does God exist? Okay, it is not the other way around. Agnostic is not someone who follows agnosticism. That's a psychological state. That's how atheism is. That's how theism is. A theist is someone who follows theism. An atheist is someone who follows atheism. That's not the same thing for agnosticism. Agnosticism is someone who is agnostic on the proposition. That's how it's defined by the SEP.
All right, maybe I'm not understanding. Can you please just define it now in terms of belief? What does an agnostic believe? Define it in terms of belief.
Agnostic would say that they believe that they don't have enough information to weigh in on the proposition to give a truth value to it, such that they suspend judgment on it.
Agnostics believe in the virtue of doubt.
No, I don't have any doubt on that. No, I don't like doubt. I hate doubt. But Ocean, would the definition I just gave, is that acceptable to you?
I keyed out. What's the definition you just gave?
This is the third time you do it again. I swear to God, I'm gonna hunt you down.
I know, right? It's just, you guys you're having a conversation with each other, and it's like
Pay attention.
It's on the same tried subject. So what's the?
But that's why it's toward the end of the Hangout. People can hang up by now. Go away, people.
Right, I've been reading the side chat. So.
Yeah, go away, people. You don't want to listen to go away. We're done with the conversation. We're the Hangout.
What are you?
But I want to keep it on air in case people are bored.
What's the definition that you provided?
Agnostic was somebody who says, I believe I can't, I don't have enough information or knowledge to come to the conclusion of, I can't define
I go with, I don't know what to believe.
No, as a belief. Agnosticism is a belief.
You and Ocean have a disagreement.
Well, I'm going to correct him on it. Agnosticism is the belief, and if you look in every definition, it says agnosticism is the belief that a person cannot assign a truth value to the proposition. Therefore, they suspend judgment on it.
I think that's roughly the same thing as what I said.
It is. But
no, I think it's.
I think when an agnostic is saying, "I don't know what to believe," the reason why they're saying that is because they don't believe they have the tools to.
Right. It's the same.
I just want to make it very clear that I'm using the Stanford Encyclopedia definition.
So
He's not using that definition.
No, I just said so. Am I?
I read it twice.
I'm absolutely reading Stanford's. I have that page memorized. I've read it.
Are you using Huxley's?
No, I have it up in front of me. That's what I'm saying. I'm reading it. I'm reading it as you're saying it, and that's not. You actually posted it. That's why you're not using that same definition.
It actually says agnosticism is thought. Agnosticism should be thought basically of the position. It's not. It shouldn't be thought as a proposition. Unlike atheism and theism, which are propositional, agnosticism is thought psychologically. It's a psychological state of somebody who is an atheist. Is an agnostic. That's what the SEP states. It makes it very clear that agnosticism shouldn't be expressed as a proposition, but it can be. But then it changes. Then it's redefined to be an agnostic is somebody who follows agnosticism. That's not how I'm using that. That's not how it's utilized. Agnosticism is thought as a psychological state because of a person's inability to weigh in on the proposition, so they suspend judgment. That's different than being a propositional state, right? I don't treat agnosticism as a propositional state. Neither does the SEP. I've read that. I don't even have it up. I've got it. I've read it so many times, that page. I don't like the last part, the arguments, too well. I don't fully understand some of the arguments they're using for global and local atheism, but I do know they're in there. Yeah. But the question remains is, you kept asking me, do you believe in God? And you kept insisting that as an agnostic, I have to answer that I don't know, which to me is silly.
I wasn't insisting that. I was insisting that just by saying you're agnostic doesn't answer the question.
But did I ever answer I'm agnostic to that question?
And I was making the point. The 2 points I was making is that, number one, logically, when you wrote it out logically, the not B, you could also write it out not K. It's identical because
it's not
K.
You have to have a predicate to be.
I showed you
Not K doesn't mean anything. You have to have a predicate. You have to have a predication of the proposition. It's not KP. Not K.
I was showing that when you said not belief, you initially put it as a not belief position, and then you said, yeah, that's logically it's not a belief position. Then you said ontologically it is a belief position, and then you tried to explain how it was a belief position. But then I was addressing the fact that it is indistinguishable. The logic that you wrote out is indistinguishable from knowledge. It's not belief, because not belief equals not knowledge. If you don't believe, it is a consequence.
You could put KP there just easy and it would hold true. Yes.
So I was explaining
not K. You
even
had
in
not
the definition, even in the definition that was put forth, that you put forth like 4 or 5 times, each one of those definitions also appealed to the knowledge claim, because just like what you put logically, that it's not a belief position, not belief positions means not knowledge, are identical to not knowledge positions, and the position that you and the definition that you also held up also said it was a position on knowledge, a belief that you couldn't know.
A belief.
It's just like me saying,
right? Exactly.
Hold on. It's just like me saying my mammal is a cat, because all belief positions, all knowledge positions are belief positions. So to say I believe I don't know is just like me saying my mammal is a cat. I can just say I have a cat because it's inherent that it's a mammal. Just like you can say I don't know because it's inherent when you say I don't know.
Okay, but that was a roundabout way of avoiding my entire question.
This is what I was trying to explain to you.
Well, how about you just
saying you don't believe?
Instead of going down this rabbit hole,
you
just answer my question once, because you spent 3 minutes avoiding everything I just asked you. I was
laying out my position.
No, but you said you cannot answer agnosticism to your question. I asked you who answered that. It wasn't me, so why are you arguing about me on that? You asked me, you said, do you believe in God? I said no every single time. And you're like, you can't answer agnosticism. I'm not answering agnosticism. So who did that if you're not referring to me?
That's what I keep saying. I agreed with that point. I agreed that you were saying no. That is not that was not the disagreement.
You did not agree with me. I have 5,000 messages here.
Was saying I am agnostic. Did it address the question? Do you believe a God exists? And I was saying it doesn't directly address the question. And Sepp said it didn't directly address the question, and that's what I was trying to explain to you. That's why I kept addressing the question multiple times, so you can see that what I was trying to explain.
Okay. Why is this?
I interrupt just to avoid repeating all that again?
Yeah, but why is this not working right?
Oh, there, you fixed it.
No
longer presenting. Are we being sniped?
No. Okay, now can you guys see this? He asked me, how many times do you believe in God? I answer, I am agnostic, so equals no. Mm-hmm. Okay, I answer this how many times? Just to show you. When he first started asking me, you keep ignoring my point. You asked me, are you this is his words, I'm just quoting. Are you a theist? Answer, no, I'm not a theist. Are you a theist? Answer, no, I'm not a theist. He answers it for some reason. And I keep explaining to him, I'm answering his question. And then down here, wait, let me finish. I said, you keep asking me if I was a theist. I kept answering directly, no. And then you keep saying, so you agree that agnosticism alone doesn't answer the question. You're not a theist. I'm not answering, am I agnostic? I'm answering no to your question. And here again, do you believe in God? I am agnostic. The answer is no. No, I do not believe in God because I'm agnostic.
Look at my post right here. Question: do you believe in God?
Right here.
Answer: I am a theist. That means yes. Question: do you believe in a God? Answer: I am an atheist. Means no. Question: do you believe in God? Answer: I am agnostic. And you see those 3 question marks?
Equals no. Equals no. That's my answer right here.
Which position you're holding?
And then you say, I am agnostic. No. Wrong. How is that wrong that I'm answering no to your question? You're saying here agnostic equals I don't know. You're insinuating that I have to answer I am agnostic on this. That's what you're saying. I answered no. How many times here, guys? No. Are you a theist? No. Do you believe in God? No.
Well, listen, all you're doing is keep asserting what I'm saying while I'm trying to explain to you what I'm saying, and I'm trying to address it by saying, look at what I wrote. The reason why I wrote the question 3 times and used theist, atheist, and agnostic was to show that if you're a theist, it's yes. If you're an atheist, we all agree it's going to be no matter how you define it. But if you're agnostic, it was a question of whether it addressed your belief claim, and it doesn't address your belief claim until I ask you, well, do you believe in God? That's what I was saying. That agnosticism, that's saying I'm agnostic, doesn't initially just say that you don't believe in God. It actually doesn't really tell you what your belief in the proposition is.
Look at this. Question: do you believe in God? Answer: I am agnostic. No is my answer. I answered your question. How did I not answer your question? You said, am I a theist? Yes. Am I an atheist? No. Am I agnostic? Yes, I'm agnostic, but I'm answering your question here. Do you believe in God? No, I do not believe in God.
All right. You're answering the question, do you believe in God? And you said no. I agree
Right.
with that. Let's put that to the side. But now, these three questions I'm not putting up for just no nonsensical reason. The first question is, do you believe in a God? And the person says, I am a theist. And that means yes. If the person says, I am an atheist, that means no. If the person says, I am agnostic, that
Who
doesn't
says
tell me.
that?
That doesn't tell me that
Who
that was
would
the point
answer
that
that question?
Steve,
I am
Steve,
agnostic.
Steve, that was the point that I was making.
Nobody
And
answered
then
that.
you and now you keep saying you said no. Exactly, I agree. You said no, but just by saying I'm agnostic doesn't answer the question. So that's what's attacked. That so how what I'm doing is I'm
So you're
attacking
setting
the
up a
fact
straw man that
that
nobody.
agnosticism
I've never heard
is
anybody
not
answer that question with agnostic.
what I'm attacking is that agnosticism doesn't really answer the question, and so it's not really a belief proposition based on exactly what you're saying, and even based on the logic that you
MP,
put,
you're
because
setting
you
up a
put
straw
it's
man.
not B,
How-
not a belief.
MP, you're setting up a straw man. How many people have answered that question? I'm agnostic as an answer. I never have. So who are you making this argument towards?
Steve, you're saying agnosticism is a belief position. And
Don't
answer
answer
the
my question with a question. I asked you a question. Who are you making this argument towards?
I'm directly answering it. You're
Okay.
cutting me off. You're not listening to me. What I'm saying is that the argument that we were having was that if you say I'm agnostic, is it a belief position? And I was showing you three ways. I was showing you logically, you proved to us that it wasn't a belief position. You agreed with that. Then by the definition of agnosticism, it appealed to knowledge. I believe I don't know something. So I was saying that that's just a double negative, because if you're saying I don't know something, inherently you don't believe. So you don't have to say I don't believe. I believe I don't know. It's obvious you don't believe because you don't know. Then the third reason that you were saying that it was agnostic, that agnostic didn't answer the belief question, is because if you say I'm a theist, it does directly answer the question, because that means yes. If you're an atheist, it does directly answer the question. You says no. When you're agnostic, you can't tell which side of the fence that you're on. That's what I was explaining to you. That's what I was trying to show.
That's
Just
not
by
what
saying
that's
you're
not what
agnostic
your
doesn't
argument
truly answer the
was.
question, and that's why I was saying that's not a belief claim and
MP,
put to the question. But
this
you
is what
still
drives me
agree with
nuts. I've said now, how many times have I said agnosticism itself doesn't answer the question of the proposition? But if you ask me, do you believe in God? I can answer that question.
No, I agree. I agree. And now, since you've clarified and you said that it doesn't answer the question, I agree. That's what I kept asking you. It doesn't answer
Of the
question.
proposition. But there's a difference.
So I agree with that. So we don't have a
It
disagreement.
doesn't answer the question in regards to the proposition, not the question you asked. You're conflating two very different things. The proposition is some God exists, or at least one God exists. Or can I just, for argument, can we just say God exists to make it short? Okay, it's not maybe not properly formed, but proposition God exists. I cannot answer that question, right? I can't answer that proposition. I'm agnostic on that proposition. But if you ask me, do you believe God exists? I can answer that. No. There's a difference between a propositional question and a closed-ended question. The proposition is some God exists. I have to assign a truth value to that. If it's true, then I'm a theist. If it's false, I'm an atheist. If it's I don't assign a truth value, I'm agnostic. But that's different than a closed-ended question that says, do you believe in God? Well, clearly all non-theists have no belief in God. All of them would answer no. If they would all not answer no, none of them, well, one of them would, a hard atheist, but most of them would not attribute false to the proposition, correct?
No, I'm agreeing. I agree with you.
Then that's the disconnect. You keep asking these questions, and then you say, "Oh, Steve, I'm asking you, do you believe in God?" And you're saying you're agnostic. I'm like, no. I'm answering the question, no. 6, 7 times I answer the question, no.
Steve, what you're doing is you're just picking. You're not looking at the framework, which I'm trying to explain to you that I'm arguing. I'm arguing. You've made the argument that agnosticism is a belief position that addresses the question, and that's what heretic is saying too.
No. Stop saying that.
That's what heretic.
Stop
That's
saying
what heretic
that.
was
I
saying,
just
and
said
that's why.
5,000 times.
Can I finish
It
what I'm saying?
doesn't
I
address
sat
the
here and
primary
listened
proposition.
to what you said, and now I'm just trying to explain to what I'm saying.
You just changed it again.
This is what I believe. This is what at this time I believe. Heretic even believed it because that's why he made his post. Now, in addressing that, I addressed 3 things. I addressed the logic that you employed. The logic that you employed.
My logic was spot on.
And again, you keep cutting me off. I'm not saying your logic was wrong, but in your logic, you said it's not a belief position, not B. You said not BP, not B, not P. That is not a belief position. I said, okay, not a belief position, what makes that different than a not knowledge position? It doesn't, because if you don't believe, then you can't have knowledge. That is a fact. There's a fact you cannot avoid. So instead of saying I just don't
What does
believe,
knowledge have to do with
you
any
can
of this?
say I don't know. They are functionally the same thing.
Why do
in
you
that
keep bringing
particular
up knowledge
paradigm.
when we're not even talking about knowledge? You throw in that word and it changes everything. We just need to eliminate the word knowledge. Nobody's talking about knowledge on any of these conversations. That word needs to be banned when you're talking about these positions, because it has nothing to do with these positions. Okay? And there's a difference between the epistemic reasoning behind something and the logical reason. Logically, positions are the same. Any non-theist position besides hard atheism is going to have that same logical structure. An apatheist is not going to accept the proposition and not going to reject the proposition. They're going to suspend judgment on it. Ichtheist is going to suspend judgment on it. An agnostic is going to suspend judgment on it. Their epistemic reasoning is different, but all of them neither accept the proposition to be true, right? So they have a not BP, and none of them are going to accept the proposition to be false or not B, not P, correct? Would that not be the logic that they have?
That is the logic that they have, but the problem
Then
that
what is the argument
problem
again?
I think that you're conflating is that all of this is dependent on a theistic the position of affirmation. Are you a theist? Do you believe in this proposition? That is a yes or no question. That, for instance, if you are a theist, you affirm. Anything else is just not affirming that position. So I don't care whatever.
And not necessarily an atheist.
Hold on, let me finish. I don't care what your position is. If you don't say yes to the position, or do you believe in a God, and you say anything other than yes, then you're just not a theist. You're something else.
Right, I agree with that.
And now when I've addressed that to you, I said, okay, well, you're saying that agnosticism is a belief position, and then you put your first experiment with addressing that was to put up the logic, not B, and
That's
not
logically,
B
that's
P,
not
and then
epistemic.
not B, not P. And I said, well, then in your logic, it says that they're not belief positions. You agreed with that. You agreed that there wasn't a belief position based on
Logically.
logic. Then
What's
you brought
still a belief?
then you put up four definitions of agnosticism.
But-
each one addressed it in the way of, I believe that nothing can be known.
And
So
do you
I
know the
said,
difference
even in those definitions, they also addressed knowledge. They're just saying,
do you know the difference between a first order and second order?
they're addressing knowledge. They're not addressing beliefs. And you said no, because the word belief is in it, it somehow will address belief. And then I rebutted by saying, if you say I don't believe it, then you can't know it. You can't say I know something that you said you don't believe.
Who's saying anything about knowledge again? Who's saying they know something?
I'm explaining the reason why I believe that it was better, and agnosticism was better explained to be a knowledge position based on the logic and the definitions that you put up. And now you just pigeonholed the whole conversation to, well, you just kept saying I didn't believe in God. Everyone else kind of saw the logic and was like, okay, well, I understand why he's saying it's a logic position, because if you agree, all knowledge claims are belief claims. If you lack belief, then you can't have knowledge, and that's a true statement.
I agree with that. Who's arguing against that?
No, that was my point. My point is the position
I never argued that against that.
is one that is not a belief position. It is better suited to be a knowledge position, and I gave you my reasoning, but you just
your reasoning is completely flawed. You don't seem to be understanding the difference between a first order and a second order belief. Okay, agnosticism is a second order belief. It's still a belief though because of that. It's not a belief about the proposition. You're not answering the proposition true or false. So therefore, you're not addressing the proposition. It's not a first order belief in that regard. It's a second order belief. I believe I cannot answer the question because of this. Those are my epistemic reasons. Logically, however, to the first order is the same logically as not BP and not B, not B. That's towards the first order, but it's still a second order belief, as explained to you by Alex in a Hangout, if I'm not mistaken. I think he explained to you this exact same thing.
I don't know. I don't agree.
Do you understand the difference between a first order and a second order belief?
Oh no, I'm agreeing with the first and second order belief, but what I'm saying is that all the justifications that you've put forward between that this was solely a belief claim, then it was like, well, okay, the logic said it's not. Now you agree the logic said it's not. Now we go into the definition, which said it was a knowledge claim. Now you said it's not, and now you're trying to save it. I understand, but we
as an agnostic, what is it I'm claiming I know?
I have not been convinced. I'll say that.
Okay, well, as an agnostic, what is it I'm claiming to know?
You're claiming to lack knowledge.
No. You're saying it's a knowledge claim. What am I claiming to know?
By saying I believe I don't know something, I'm saying you're making a claim toward knowledge.
So I believe is a belief claim. You just said I believe. That's a predicate on the proposition I believe.
All right, let me break this down. If I say I have a mammal that's a cat, then yes, it's true. I have a mammal that's a cat, but it would be simpler for me to say I just had a cat because mammal is implied with cat. The definition for agnosticism that you put up, simply put, is I believe I don't know.
What's the simpler way?
If you're saying that you don't know, then inherently you don't believe. So it's just you're not understanding that one is a sufficient condition, one is a necessary condition, and by negating the necessary condition, then you've automatically
agree with you on that.
So it seems to be to me to be more suited to be a knowledge claim. Now you could disagree with that, which we.
Well, what am I claiming as knowledge?
That is it.
I just agreed with everything you just said, but you're saying it's a knowledge claim. What am I claiming? A knowledge claims means I know X, I know P. So what is it that I'm saying I know?
Well, you're saying I don't know, and I'm saying that's not a claim to knowledge. Then. That I don't know is a claim to knowledge. You're saying you don't know something.
So wait a minute. Oh, I want to get this straight. So every lack of belief atheist out there, you're saying is now making a belief claim. Because they lack a belief. According to you, every soft atheist is now making a belief claim.
It's a claim about belief. Yes, they're making a belief claim. They believe. I do not believe this, or I believe that. It's not. It's not a positive belief claim, but they're saying I don't believe in something, or I do believe in something. I don't know how this is difficult.
It doesn't matter. The positive or negative claim doesn't matter here.
Positive knowledge claim. You're saying knowledge claim. I don't know something, or I do know something. I don't know.
See, this is what you're confusing. You're confusing the difference between a belief claim and a claim about the belief.
Okay, since I misspoke, I am talking about claims about belief and claims about knowledge.
Big difference, though.
Agnosticism is a claim about knowledge. If that suits the game, so we don't have to get
different. That's a different
claim
thing,
about
though.
knowledge.
That's a different thing altogether.
Yeah,
I'm okay with that. Of course, agnosticism is a claim about knowledge if you want to use some of the definitions that they use, which I don't because I'm not a Huxleyan. Or I guess for a temporal it would apply, because I'm saying, yes, it's about knowledge. I don't think that anybody right now has the knowledge God exists. So if you want to say it's about knowledge, yes, then agnosticism is about knowledge. It doesn't make it a knowledge claim. That's what your assertion was, and that's what I kept calling you out for.
Okay, then that's fair enough. It's not a knowledge claim.
And do you keep on seeing why I keep answering the question?
I also don't think it's a belief claim. I don't think it's a belief claim.
All right, so let's go back to my original question.
You put it's not a belief claim.
Okay, so let's go back to the original question. You keep on saying, do you believe in God? And you keep on saying that somebody that's been answering, they're agnostic on it. Who has ever told you they're agnostic on that question? Because it's never been me.
There's plenty of people who've told me they're agnostic. I've been in hangouts with you when people said, "Oh, what's your position on do you believe in God?" And we're just having we're not having
changing the question.
No, we're not having these deep philosophical because sometimes we're not having these deep philosophical discussions, and someone will ask you, "Do you believe in God?" And you'll say, "Well, my position is I'm agnostic." And then I would say something like, and I said it before, but that's not really answering the question. And then we get into this back and forth. So it's not like it's not been said. I'm just clarifying that when someone says that, it doesn't address the question. And if you agree, then I don't know why we're
okay, fair enough. I'll grant you that one in some of the conversations. You're right. Maybe somebody would ask, what's your position on God, which is a different question, by the way. But somebody might answer. But what I try to do is I try to answer. Look, I'm agnostic. So to answer your question, I would say no, but I don't always get that far. So fair enough. I'll grant you that. But I want to go on record. If somebody asks you, do you believe in God? Just answering you're agnostic, I think still answers the question, but not completely, because agnostics, the answer to that is no. All agnostics would be no, but then you got to clarify that, right? So if somebody says, do you believe in God? And somebody says, well, I'm agnostic, they're saying no to the question de facto, but they're not explicitly saying it. But implicitly, they are saying no.
See, and that's the tension that we have, because I think logically,
that's true, though, right?
I think, and that this is, and I'm actually not saying this as an argument. I'm saying this is my point of confusion, because logically, I agree with you, but then when you look at the definition, that doesn't seem to follow, because you could, based on the definitions that you put up, and you said I understand you said you don't hold to those definitions, but based on the definitions from SEP, IEP, and all these other different places,
I go by the definitions by IEP.
You could say, I believe in God.
Did he just say I don't hold to the
and again? Then use the definition for agnosticism, and they both can be true at the same time.
Did he just hold it and said I don't hold to those things?
Say I'm agnostic.
I want to make this very clear. I hold to the IEP and SEP definitions. And you keep on saying that I don't, and I don't know why.
No, I'm not saying you don't. I'm not saying you don't. I'm saying that's the ones that you put up that you said you had a little issue. You just said you had an issue with them in a certain other way. But I know Yada wants to say something.
No, I haven't.
No. He just asked me a question, and I was gonna just tell him I didn't know anything about it. But
you have asserted that I've disagreed with the SEP. You said it in that post. Oh, well, Steve, that means your argument is against the SEP. No, my argument is not against the SEP. I agree with the SEP.
No, you just clarified. Now I understand what you're saying. Now you understand what I'm saying. I think right now you clarified. You did clarify, and I accept everything you say. I don't think you're wrong, but I do think there's an issue in terms of the way you logically put it forward. But you said that there's an issue with the logic.
You said my logic was spot on.
The definition, because the logic does lead you to believe that these are knowledge claims, and then the definition uses knowledge. So it is kind of.
You just said my logic was. You just said my logic was correct. Roddy Moldo.
Your logic is correct. I'm not saying your logic is not correct.
What's that guy's name, Rod?
Stop saying that. Your logic is correct. I use your logic to argue that your logic is right. Stop saying that. Your logic is correct. I use your logic. I learned the logic from you. Stop saying that.
Didn't he just say there was a flaw? What's that?
No.
Yada?
I was gonna make a joke. I was saying I learned it from you, Dad.
Yeah, it's funny. I learned the fucking logic from this guy, and he keeps telling it's not wrong. I agree. Your logic is spot on. I'll tell anybody that it's not wrong.
Well, this is where it gets into the other part of it. Is look at according to my logic, which is correct. Which, by the way, it's not my logic. It's Alex's logic. I've just utilized it. You know, he's the one that laid all this out initially. I just happen to agree with him. But I understand his reasoning. I understand the logic. So. When we say that logic is correct, it literally shows, though, all it shows is when people saying, Steve, you're agnostic, you have to be either atheist agnostic or theist agnostic, it shows that they're wrong. It just unequivocally shows that they're wrong. Because I don't have to be an agnostic or a theist to be an atheist. I don't have to be an atheist or a theist to be agnostic. It just is not required. That's where the disconnect comes in, because there are people out there that think that if you take to agnosticism, you also must be atheist or theist, and mostly they just assume you under atheism for some reason.
Yeah.
And they say, no, you have to be atheist or theist. Well, clearly that's not the case. That's obviously wrong.
That discussion always comes up when people are just first discussing this topic. I mean, it's not intuitive.
It's not intuitive. And it's going to be the day we all die, that's going to keep getting brought up, because there's always people coming into the community saying you must be atheist or theist. And I think by now, most people realize that's completely fucked.
No, see, and again, I fundamentally disagree with that, because I think if you take the definition of agnosticism,
then you can't say my logic is correct.
And you say I believe in God and hold to that same definition that's employed for agnosticism, that can be a true statement. I don't see how. In other words, I don't see by using the definition and not the word agnostic, and attaching it to a theistic claim, it doesn't seem like there's any problem in terms of. It doesn't falsify itself. The definition for agnosticism doesn't falsify theism. It doesn't lead you to the conclusion that you're saying no to that question.
So let me ask you. I'm an agnostic, right, MP?
Yes.
Okay, I'm not a theist, correct?
Yes.
And I'm not an atheist, right?
Under your definition, yes.
Then I just proved my case. You just argued with me saying, no, Steve, that's not true. I just literally said, not more than a minute ago, you could be an agnostic and you do not have to be theist or an atheist, and you just chimed in and said, oh, no, Steve, that's not true. Now you just showed that it's true.
Yes, I agreed with your statements. But if you would like me to then explain to you why I believe.
Did you just say I was wrong a minute ago?
If you would let me to explain why that reasoning is flawed, I'd explain it to you. But I agree with your statement.
It's a real merry-go-round.
What reasoning is wrong? Let me make it very clear. Then you ought to pay attention.
I'm
focused.
Well, no, I understood. Oh, never mind.
Pinpoint.
You don't even remember the question yet.
Yeah, laser beam. Okay, so my argument at this moment is that I am neither a theist nor an atheist. Do you agree with that, MP?
Yes, I agree with that.
Okay. Now, you can disagree with how the definition. That's fine. That's a different argument. You can say, I don't like that definition, whatever. But you do agree that there are formal definitions by which I go by, and I know Ocean goes by, under which I would neither be an atheist or a theist, correct?
Yes.
That's my entire argument. As long as people understand that, I don't care.
Okay, but now if I can just get a chance to respond. Well,
That
first,
popular fallacy, he appealed to Ocean.
Argumentative at Ocean.
my response is in twofold. My response number one is that logically I accept that, because you would be right. It would be not BP and not B not P. So yes, it would both you could hold both positions as agnostic. That's the way you've put forward in the logic, no doubt about it. But then you did also admit that if you do now look at the definition, then that would seem to suggest that you would have to either hold to an agnostic theistic position or an agnostic atheistic position.
Definition.
Now, hold on, because
definition.
Because I let you explain your piece. So I just want to explain my piece so everyone can hear it. Now, the definition for agnosticism, and this is going to be just a quick definition, so we don't have to belabor the point, is that I believe I don't know, more or less. And I'm saying that I believe I don't know is one of those, is really an I don't know. It's really just addressing I don't know, because you don't have to say I believe I don't know. It's just like me saying my mammal is a cat. You can say I don't know.
That's fine. I'm gonna go with that. That's fine.
So if the position is from the definition I don't know, then that doesn't address the belief claim. Do you believe in a God? Only thing it says is you don't know. So you could actually believe that a God exists and say I don't know, or you can say I don't believe a God exists and I don't know. So that was the difference in the fact that, yes, logically, I agree with you with the logic. But when it comes to the definition of the word, what you're saying doesn't also hold forward.
But you're misunderstanding this point. If somebody answers agnostic, they're not saying they don't know if they believe in God or not. They're not saying I don't know if I have a God belief. That's not what they're saying by calling themselves agnostic. Everybody, I think, knows that they have a God belief or not. I think I could ask anybody out here, do you have a belief in God? If you say yes, you're a theist. Anything else, you're not theist. You agree upon that before. So I think everybody knows that they have a God belief. I know I don't have a God belief, right? But that's not what we're talking about here, right? If I answer agnosticism, that implicitly means I don't have a God belief. I'm answering no to that question implicitly. Do you agree?
No, but I agree logically.
Okay. How about this? Let me try to explain this.
I don't agree.
Hang on. Is agnosticism under non-theist?
No, I don't believe it.
The way I'm using it, the way that
you're using it, yes. The way that you're using it, yes. But I don't believe it is. But
well, it is. You go look at any definition. Agnosticism is always listed under non-theism.
I'm looking under your definition. Under your definition, I just added the words I believe in a God plus.
Okay, go look in Wikipedia under non-theism. It says it right there. Non-theism, soft agnosticism, agnosticism, pantheism, skepticism. All these things are under non-theism. Okay, so agnosticism, as I'm using it according to Wikipedia as well, is under non-theism. Now, so if I say I'm agnostic, if I'm agnostic, I'm an agnostic, or I have agnosticism toward that proposition, I'm implicitly telling you no. How I'm using it. Now, you could make the argument, a better argument for you would be, I don't know how you're using that word agnosticism, and then you can clarify. That's fine. That's why the best way to answer that question would be, do you believe in God? No, because I'm agnostic.
Well, hold on.
Would get fully.
Here's the definition. Here's the definition that.
Oh, enough of the damn definitions. This
the
is
view is the existence of God, of the divine or supernatural, is unknown or unknowable.
Which is a Huxleyan.
And you say you disagree with that definition?
No, for Huxleyan, that's fine. I'm not a Huxleyan. I'm a no data agnostic, or zero data agnostic.
So you disagree with those four definitions that you also put that also appeal to unknown and unknowable? I'm
not disagreeing with any of those definitions. There are other definitions. There's more than one definition out there. There's different types of agnostics.
So which definition are you using? Because it seems like because you kept appealing to the formal definition. Now you're talking about there's a lot more definitions. Set definition is no good. IEP isn't any good because they all say wait, time out. Making up a definition and saying
did I ever say IEP is not very good? Yada. Have I not said I accept IEP? Yada. Now I need you. Did I not say how many times IEP is what I use? And he says, no, you don't accept IEP.
What is the formal definition? Forget about all. What's the formal definition for agnosticism?
There's no one formal definition for any of these things. There's different ways of expressing things. There's no one way to put it. Even in atheism,
for all these years,
atheism doesn't have
definition. And I'm asking for formal definition.
Oh my God, MP, listen to me. There's no one perfect definition. There's what's useful and what's not useful. Okay? There are many definitions for atheism. I've explained this to you many times. There's many different definitions for agnosticism. The one I'm using is for temporal agnosticism, or what's called zero data agnosticism. The position that one cannot evaluate the proposition. So they suspend judgment on it because they believe that nobody right now has the knowledge one way or another to properly evaluate that position.
So I believe God, and I also claim everything you just said, that I don't believe it can ever be known.
Well, I should modify
there is no way that your statement just in any way stop me from saying I believe in God plus everything that you just said.
It's not designed.
At the end, you just said it's just unknowable. You understand? It's
but agnosticism is a position. Think about the gumballs, MP. I have look at. I have a gumball machine right in front of me right now. I don't, but pretend I did. Okay. You agree that they're even or odd, right? Would you agree on that?
Yes, I agree.
Okay. What's your belief that it's even?
I do not believe that they're even.
Okay. What's your belief that it's odd?
I do not believe that they're odd.
So you're agnostic on the proposition, right? If I say the proposition is the gumballs are even, how do you evaluate that?
I can't evaluate that.
That's agnosticism. There you go.
I agree.
It's a very valid position.
Agnosticism under your very non-formal
formal
use definition.
That's
not
formal.
The definition that
how is that not formal? That is exactly what it means.
The dictionary and the IEP and that is a personal definition that you're employing.
No, I'm giving you a use of it.
I'm just being honest with you. It's just not. When you look, and I'm using the definitions that you put up. Should I screen to the definitions that you put up, Steve? Because you're changing definitions now.
MP, I'm giving you an example of somebody who cannot evaluate the proposition. The proposition's just changed. That's all. Agnosticism and agnostic are contextual. Okay, they don't have a rigid definition like you want there to be. This is what I'm saying. There's a context involved. If somebody says, "Do you believe in aliens?" I can say I'm agnostic toward that proposition. It's contextual. Agnostic doesn't have to apply just to the God proposition.
See, the way I try to evaluate things is that if you put up definitions for words and I say, oh, let me use those definitions to see how this works out, and then I show you how those definitions seem to point to something else, then you've now just changed the definition on me. So
no, we're talking about
that you've appealed to before doesn't seem to work.
Okay, how about this? Okay, MP, how about make it simple? I can't evaluate the proposition. How about that? Can I just make it as that real quick? I can't evaluate the proposition.
Okay, so I believe in God and I can't evaluate the proposition.
You believe in God?
You can say that. I believe in God, but I can't evaluate the proposition. If you believe in God, you've
evaluated the proposition.
There is no way that you've just stopped. There's no way logically that it's saying that I can't say I believe in God, but yet I cannot evaluate the position. That is what I'm saying.
But that's using it a different way. That's not how I and everybody else uses this word. An agnostic, how we are using it as a position, according to SEP and IEP, is a position that cannot evaluate the proposition. If you picked a side, theist or the rejection, which would be hard atheism, you are no longer in that position to suspend judgment. You are now using the word agnosticist or agnosticism as an adjective, no longer as a noun. Right? Big difference. We're using it as a noun. We're using it as a position. You're using it as an adjective. Completely different. Do you understand that?
I don't think. Oh, I'm not going to say anything. Forget it.
Context is key here, MP. So you agree, though, you are suspending judgment on the gumballs, correct? Just like I am suspending judgment on the proposition.
No, I'm suspending judgment on the gumballs.
Okay, then that is a possible position. When people say, "Here's the proposition: God exists," and they say you have to either affirm it or reject it, which is bullshit. I don't have to affirm it to be a theist. I don't have to reject it to be an atheist. I can suspend judgment on it. That is a position to take. And they say, no, you have to be one or the other, which goes back to what I said before. You don't have to be a theist or an atheist. You could be something other than a theist or atheist. They're not mutually, I mean, they're mutually exclusive, but they're not the only two positions out there. They're not a dichotomy like that. They're not I should say a disjunction, not a dichotomy more than anything. They're not a disjunction. It's not such that if you're a theist, you're not a theist, you have to be an atheist. If you're not an atheist, you have to be a theist. P or Q, not Q, therefore P, or P or Q, not Q, P, therefore Q. It's called exclusive disjunction. Either you're one or the other. A lot of atheists promote that, right, MP? They're wrong. They're absolutely wrong. I've just demonstrated how many times. I mean, how many more times do I need to demonstrate that those people that are advocating that you have to be atheist or theist are wrong? Under their definition, they're right. define it under their definition. But the fact remains that there are other definitions out there that makes what they're saying wrong, because they're saying that it always has to be that case. Clearly, that's not true.
Well, just to finish this off, because so we can change topics. When in the post with whatever his name, Emperor Atheist, it was asked about and the agnosticism, and you guys were having a debate about whether it was a belief position, and you asserted that it was not a belief position. But then
I asserted that it was a belief position.
But then you put up a couple of definitions, and then in those each one of those definitions, it always had to always be knowable or unknowable, and those type of things.
We've already established that.
It's the belief that the nature of God is unknowable and will always be unknowable.
That's one type of different. That's a
versions of those four definitions. And then you kind of put up even sources that agreed with that and saying, hey, these are good sources to show that this is the formal definition of agnosticism, the belief. Yes. And I said, okay, yes, that's true. But now I've challenged the fact that the belief that you don't know something is redundant. Because if you're saying I don't know something, then obviously you don't.
I've already agreed with you on that. If you say I believe I don't know, you might as well say I don't know. Did I ever challenge you on that?
You see, Steve, I'm trying to get all my points that you keep cutting me off. I'm not saying you're challenging me on that point. But then, as I addressed it, I said, well, if you take your definition for agnosticism, the definition that it's a belief that the nature of God is unknown and always unknowable,
which is not the definition I use. But go ahead.
That's the definition that you put up as a formal definition, and put up like 4 different versions of it.
I'm not a Huxleyan.
And then when I made the objection, it says, well, then under that using those definitions, you can also say that you're a theist. You can say I believe in God and still hold in the other definitions that you put forward could also be true at the same time. So it seems that you could be a theist and an agnostic at the same time. You've not addressed that. You just said it's not possible, but you've not addressed that. It is clear based on the definitions that you've employed in writing that you can be a theist and you can be agnostic. I don't know why, if you don't accept that, then it's fine.
MP, I don't think you're really getting the full impact of him saying what's the difference between Huxleyan and his temporal.
Yeah, well, let me show what. Let me show the definition I showed him. He's only wait. He's only giving you one half of it. This is the entire definition I gave him. Yato, can you read that for us, please?
Agnosticism is the belief that one, God, if it exists, is by nature unknowable and will always be unknowable. Strong agnosticism. Oh, I hate that. Or 2, that the individual being asked cannot conclude if God exists or not for the lack of good evidence one way or the other.
Okay, so Yada, which one do you think I'm using this as, 1 or 2?
You too.
Very clearly.
I was biased when I really don't like the strong, weak designations.
Yeah, no, I know. I know what you're saying. That basically is a Huxleyan. One is a Huxleyan, right? But there are there's no one set definition. That they're just using the Huxleyan definition, but that's not the only.
And the Huxleyan definition is not the formal definition. It's just the definition.
Well, no, it's a formal, but it's not the formal. There's no words don't have intrinsic meaning. There's no one specific definition for things, right? I mean, how many definitions are there for species?
Yeah,
or speciation, even when a speciation happens. So there's a lot of different things that go into these words, but I'm using it clearly as the second one, which is consistent. Agnosticism is the belief that I don't have enough information either way to weigh in on and assign the proposition of God's existence to be true or not.
I mean, I just want now just follow my logic, because all right, let's say you're appealing to the second definition. All right, second definition, and you're saying that's the formal definition. So is it incorrect? It's a formal definition. It's a formal definition. So just with that, an individual being asked, they cannot conclude if God exists or not for a lack of good evidence, correct?
They can't weigh
I can't conclude that God exists because there's lack of good evidence or not lack of good evidence.
Yeah,
but does that bar me from believing that he exists?
Yeah, as a belief.
I can't conclude that he exists, but that bar me from not believing he exists. I believe he exists, but I can't conclude
as a belief
that he does.
As a belief.
Yes.
I can't. A belief would conclude. A conclusion is a belief. I conclude the proposition to be true.
No. I can say I believe, like for instance, I believe my car runs, but I can't conclude it because I haven't gone down and checked it. So the conclusion versus the believing something can be
okay. Fair enough.
So I believe God exists, but I can't conclude if he does or not.
That's equivocation on the word conclusion. I can draw a conclusion without actually empirically verifying.
But you have to believe everything. If you said you're concluding something is the case, you believe it, right?
That's my point, right? I believe it. I cannot conclude that the proposition is true. It's the same thing as saying I don't believe.
But
I
you
can't
can believe something without concluding it's the case. Is that correct?
If I believe that it's true, I've concluded that it's true. That'd be synonymous in that regard.
Can you believe something that you haven't concluded to be the case? Can you say, can I?
Yes,
you do it all the time. You always
yes, but not when it comes to proposition.
I believe based on the probability, but you said I can't. So I'm asking you, is that the case?
But I think we're having equivocation here.
Too. Can you believe that there's aliens? Could you believe there's a God, but not conclude if he actually?
We're talking about the conclusion for the belief position, though. That's a.
I'm asking you a very specific question. Can you believe something? Now, see, you're dodging here. Can you believe something?
You're equivocating the conclusion to
but not conclude that it actually exists. Answer my question, Steve. Don't dodge this.
I'm not dodging. But if you shut up for a second, I explain to your problem. You're saying you're equivocating conclusion with confirmation. You're saying, I believe my car starts, but I haven't concluded it. Now you're changing conclude to mean confirm. That's equivocation.
Ladies, I just want to make sure that you
I don't give a shit what the fuck you've got to say. Oh, no,
I want to make sure that
your beard,
know that
glorious
you're both very pretty. And everybody loves you.
MP is pretty. He is a pretty man.
And continue arguing. It's great.
Yeah, MP is a pretty man.
Ocean always ignores me.
Oh, Ocean, MP probably, I'm telling you, I'm telling you, that man was like single. He
was somebody talking,
throwing themselves down at his feet and worshiping him. How much do you weigh, MP? You're like what, 280
right
probably?
275. Yeah, 280.
Oh, that's pretty good. That's
Before
pretty good, yes.
I was like, well, I used to be a linebacker. So
yeah, I was
like
going to say
190 or something like that.
Yeah, it's like 280 of just pure, I will crush your head in kind of shit, right?
Actually, I'm probably not.
I'm
probably closer in between, somewhere in between 170 and 190. I don't even know anymore.
But 170, 190. I'm back. I'm not gonna lie. I'm back up to about 204. I've gained on some weight in the last couple of days or weeks. I've been eating really.
You're up to 204.
There's a certain point where I just I look at myself and I'm like, nope, got to work out, got to fix this problem. So
I started at 210. I dropped down to 200, and because of Veterans Day, and I just scarfed. We went to an all you can eat, and then the day before we went out. So I've been really eating a lot in this. So I just weighed myself earlier. It was 204. So that might go down after a good shit. I don't know, but I would still like to get down to like 185, but I don't think that's going to be feasible.
The only thing tough is when you're over 40, it's hard that the metabolism doesn't work.
Oh, it's ridiculous. Just to get to, dude, it took forever. It was difficult just to get from 210 to 200. Not an easy thing. I was counting my calories like a bitch.
Hey, did you see that Godless Girl video was on Fox News the other day too? I was very surprised.
What?
Fox News?
It's on Fox?
It made Fox News. Yeah.
I know President Trump was informed, or at least I've heard through the grapevine from different sources.
I was like, she actually
made that button right at the right time.
She got viral, man. I got it again. I gotta give her props. I mean, she made something that went viral. I disagree with her what she did, but she planned it with a couple other people and she executed it masterfully. So I mean, but here's the question: I wanted to have her to come on and talk about it, but I had people convince me otherwise. But now I have people convincing me, no, Steve, you should have her on. So now I'm kind of screwed. I don't know what to do.
Well, just see if she gets another bump somewhere else. I mean, people are just going to pick this up. It just matches so many stereotypes. I just think she should have taken the shell off the lobster first.
Yeah, it's dangerous for the dog. But I mean, but here's the thing. Obviously, I don't want the great debate community attached to think that we condone this. Clearly, right? But it is newsworthy, right? And so should we? I mean, do we?
Right,
do
but
we
it doesn't
alienate?
have to do with the great debate. It's the only thing that it has to do with the great debate is the fact that it's her, and I think that she's.
Well, it involves trolling.
Yeah,
but it's trolling the world.
Yeah,
that's not.
I know
specifically with the great debate. Come on now.
Yeah. Oh, we all hope for something better than
No,
Trump.
of course not. But that's going to get her more views. It's it's probably going to get.
Well, it's not. No, it's not going to give her more views. Everybody by now already knows about.
I don't think that it would get Steve more views. Yeah, it's again, everybody already knows.
It's not going to get her more views. So that's
and
not
nobody's looking for her right now. It's whether or not you want to put that on a pedestal. And I think that what is happening. First, it doesn't have to do with your channel, and making it part of your channel. It doesn't do anything other than sully you.
Yeah, we all know who she is. Her name's Tina, by the way.
Yeah,
not a big secret. That's not even doxing. Her name's Tina.
Yeah. If there would be any worth to it, it would be Steve knowing that he could get just as much attention having her here. In other words,
it wouldn't increase your views. It's just whether
it wouldn't. No, I would have about 40, 50 people watch.
Yeah.
Well, that's your usual viewership, though.
Lately, yeah. It's been down across the board, though. For a bigger event, I'll get like 100, 150. But on the average,
wasn't I a big event, Steve?
Yeah, you're not a big event yet. But I got to tell you, we talked about this Holy Kool-Aid. Viewership is down across the board. A lot of the reason is because the way YouTube is notifying people or not notifying people.
Right.
Well, right now I think like if you have the term atheist in your title, then your video doesn't get promoted.
No, all my things have atheist in them now, and they're fine. It's just like one. I've noticed now it's basically if somebody curses a lot, it gets demonetized.
Oh, sorry, Steve.
No, I'm not talking about monetization. For instance, it's funny. I actually put a video up on atheist, and they sent me like 4 emails. Like, this video will not be played here. This video will not be promoted.
Oh, I'll show you my meta tags.
It gives you like a whole bunch of shit that tells you, just this video is like shit because you.
No, my meta tags have atheist, Christian, flat Earth, atheist experience, stuff like that. But like I said, occasionally they'll get I'd say about 25% get demonetized right now. After the initial, the initial was a quarter, like a fourth of my videos all went demonetized.
Wow, that's fucking crazy.
Yeah, it was crap. Because I mean, I live on the fact that I have a lot of videos, and when you have a lot of videos, even if you get a little traffic each one, it adds up, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I've been on for years now, so I have a lot of videos, and they still get traffic. I get about 3,000 views a day. I don't know why most.
Wow.
Yeah, I don't know why most. Yeah, it's 2,000, between 2,000 and 3,000 a day. But I think it's been a little light. I think it's probably about 1,800 now lately. Last time I think I looked at Social Blade. Let me look. But the problem is most of these people don't subscribe, and it's not just my channel. It's
you don't really have
YouTube in general.
You don't have the call to action part on your video. Usually, I don't know if you ever watch those videos that tell you how to
do on
promote
some
videos. They say they have a call to action. They'll sub, or they'll have the box.
No, I do on sub. I don't go back normally to all my videos and do that because it's very time consuming.
But you can do that like in your closing arguments today. You can just close with a call to action. Sub to the channel.
Yeah. See, this has been really light this week. I'll show you my Social Blade. This has really been down across the board. So if you look at my my views, they're down to like 1,600, 1,700, 2,500 a day. It's like 3,900. So my daily average is only about 1,000 a day right now, but usually it's about 2,000 to 3,000 a day. But you can see here by the monthly views, it's gone down quite a bit since June, July, August, right?
Uh-huh.
But I've looked at other people's and they're all like that. They've all took a dip right about this time.
Is it maybe there's another platform that people are watching videos on or something?
VidMe.
Or summertime.
Yeah, it's VidMe and holidays and is I don't know. But I mean, every day I get subs. I mean, there's never been a day this has been negative that I've seen. And in most of the times, if it is negative, it's because they do an adjustment. Well, they get rid of inactive accounts. But like here, this is an adjustment, right? I didn't lose 23. I lost 23 subs, but that was because there was an adjustment for inactive accounts.
Yeah, one time they desubbed me from you too, and I had to resub. So that does happen.
But this is this is how you basically take this and divide it by 2, and that's what you get. So my yearly earnings would be about $800. So monthly.
But that's not
Well,
bad, though. You're at least making
well, no,
something.
you know what? This is my actually. I gotta say this might be right because I did have a month that was $125. So, but you know, right now it's a lot lower than that. But so this has gone down. This used to be like 250, I think, or something, and then it divided by half, and that guy gave me what it was. But I'm a C plus, and I'm okay with that. You know.
But actually, you're growing at a pretty astonishing rate, because I remember when we first started doing these. Well, not first started doing, but when I was first started these hangouts, it was like, you know, it wasn't nearly. I think you were like under 1,000 subs. And then all of a sudden, it blew up because
I remember when I was 100 subs.
You organized everything pretty well.
Yeah. So this is my live subscriber. Since they did that update, and they do it every so often, they do it about once a month. This is my new number, so that's my live count. It's okay. I mean, I like the subs that I'm at. I mean, it's fine. I'm not going to get to 10,000 really quickly, only because I don't do any kind of atheist activist, and I don't make videos like they make. So I'm okay with that.
No, well, this is a more community based type event. Instead of like G-Man, he got his own. Even though I still can't believe he can't get like maybe 3 or 4 subs to go to the 10 grand mark. He's literally stuck at 9,000 for like ever.
9,600 he's been at for as long as I remember.
Mm-hmm.
And the funniest thing about G-Man is that even though he has literally 3 times my subs, right? Over 3 times my subs, I will almost always have more viewers than him during a live feed.
That's because those are mostly hate subs. You know, just let me sub to this clown to see what he's doing at this particular time. So,
I don't doubt that.
Subs.
I don't doubt that. I've got to. What's that?
He admits most people who sub to his channel aren't subbing because they're looking to preach to the choir ministry. They're looking to see what he says. That's crazy.
Yeah, but it's kind of weird because I get 2, 3, 5 subs a day, but I'll get a lot more new messages than that. I get so many messages a day of people leaving comments on the videos. So I know people stop by the videos. I know a lot of people, thousands of people I'll never know because I don't recognize any of their names, will leave comments, and I try to message back to them, but not all respond. You know, so. Do you think the Great Debate community, that title's getting out there? Do you think that name's getting known?
Well, I know when I'm in other places, I always mention it, especially when people are talking theology. I'll say, "Oh, this other community." But the problem is that there's no real new theistic arguments that are really convincing or people struggle with. You know, I think most, like when I come in here and somebody brings a new argument, you guys destroy it so fast. I can't even fucking get the words out of my mouth. So.
No new arguments on the Sunday. Well, guess who I'm going to be hanging out with?
That's why I'm so much fun.
Wait, guess who I'm going to be hanging out with this Saturday, MP? Online. Neil deGrasse Tyson.
Who?
Neil deGrasse Tyson.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah. EA is having a hangout with him, and he's been nice enough to invite me in. I'm only like, I would drink that man's dirty bathwater just for the flavor if I thought I could learn something.
It's funny. I met him one time at the museum, and I took my daughter to watch the planetarium event, and he was there because they were just opening it up. So I met him one time. Interesting guy.
To be an astrophysicist, I mean, you just got to be so smart. I mean, it's just ridiculous.
I can just imagine how hard it is for him to dumb things down to our level.
I know,
because
right?
even in law, it's very hard to just dumb things down so people can understand the concept. But astrophysics, it must be like tremendously hard.
Ridiculous. Well, that's why I read that book, Improbable Planet by Hugh Ross, and people balked at it, but I got to tell you, it's a good book. He brought it down to a layperson's level, and nothing in there is theologically driven until the very end because of his conclusions, which is fine. But as far as the book itself, it's really well written with a lot of science in it. So,
but Hugh Ross has always been good, dude. Have you seen his debates with Ken Hovind?
Oh, dude, are you asking me this, please?
Yeah,
that's like asking MP. Have you ever heard of law school?
That's true. Yeah.
Yeah, I know.
He totally destroys him now. Nice. He destroys poor Ken Hovind all the time.
Destroyed. Oh, that was a great. Yeah, that was one of my favorite debates.
It's really worth for Hovind to show up, though. I mean, he should do it again.
Hugh Ross won't ever debate him again. Hugh had told me he was supposed to debate Dr. Safadi, right? Jonathan Safadi. And I asked Safadi about that, but he never got back to me on it. I've talked to Safadi a few times, and he told me that basically Ross chickened out kind of thing. And I was like, well, hey, you know what? He's going to be on my program. You're more than welcome to join us. And you know what? We can have a debate right there and then. But he's like, well, I'm going on a tour to do my book and selling my book, because I'm like, yeah, because that's all Young Creationist is. Young Earth Creationism is selling books.
So. Hey, I'm going to take off, Steve. But I want to thank you again for holding the hangout between me and Lucas. I think things went well, even if we were yelling at each other in this hangout. But yeah, it was a good experience.
Yeah, that was good. That was fun. I'm going to be ending this. It's getting late. So, guys, thanks a lot. I mean, I appreciate it. I didn't get a chance to give a shout out to a couple people earlier. My bad. Cyberwares had dropped $10, and I appreciate that. And I didn't get a chance to say hi to him, so he probably left by now. And oh yeah, okay. So MP is gonna Midnight Sparkle's gonna be joining us for that on Saturday too. So I'm really stoked on that. That's great.
That's gonna be amazing.
Let me
do the call to action, Steve, for you. I'm gonna do call of action for you. If you're watching this and you've watched it to this particular point, number one, you have no life, but number two, you definitely should subscribe, because this is good shit.